As it is now 7:30, I'll call this meeting to order. Please, Madam Clerk, please call the roll call.
Supervisor Schutzer-Eisenberg.
Here.
Trustee Cassell McNally.
Here.
Trustee Robbins.
Here.
Trustee Mosier.
Here.
Trustee Rubin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, we moved it, sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're now in line for public comments. Are there any public comments? Well, that's just. Are there any public comments?
No.
Did anybody online want to participate in public comment?
No.
Do you mind identifying yourselves for our records? We usually have so few people that we always identify the entirety of the public.
Shoe, S-H-O-E.
And from which municipality? Sir? Did not answer. Thank you. All right, we are seeing as there are no public comments. We're now laying for the supervisor's report. We have a lot going on. I'm not sure I'll even remember to cover everything. So last month, obviously, we had a fabulous annual town meeting, and I thank Clerk Capretta for putting it together. It was a challenge, but you certainly took, you showed a lot of grace and really put together an event that I think a lot of people appreciated, especially as direct democracy. And thank you to everyone who spoke. And, I think that it was a really great representation of our township, as well as the power of speech. So thank you again. See you same time and place, if you will. Well, the second Tuesday of April after 6:30 at a time to be chosen. Turning next, I also attended the Township Officials of Illinois Lobby Day in April, along with Nile Supervisor. Sadly, Northfield was supposed to be my roommate, was not able to attend. And of course, the 300 of our closest friends. It was a great event in person in Springfield. It was the second to last day of session, so it was a little exciting. But our particular legislative delegation is just amazing, and I was able to meet with everyone to discuss township officials' agenda. For the most part, there was nothing that we were trying to be on the offensive for this year. Nothing was going to harm townships in that regard. We have some good things coming up. Let's see if I can go through some of the ones that I can remember. We will see updates to the definition of disability to ensure young adults with disabilities are eligible for state human services supports. The budget is going to have fabulous support for many of our social service agencies, as well as taxpayer relief on gas, groceries, and property taxes, and a permanent expansion of the earned income tax credit, $50 million towards domestic violence prevention, just to name a few things that's in that budget. But most important, it exists, and I think that's huge for our social services agencies, as we saw in previous years and how harmful that was to their budgets. HB 2775 was one of the bills that I was advocating for with our delegation over the last few months, and that amends the Illinois Human Rights Act to declare that it's the public policy of the state of Illinois to prevent source of income discrimination in housing. So essentially, it was legal everywhere except for Cook County, because Cook County had its own ordinance to say if you were on a housing voucher or using general assistance, for instance, or emergency assistance, that you were not going to accept that and to evict someone for that reason. So that is no longer going to be the case in Illinois. We found in Cook County the sky didn't fall. So I'm glad to see that will be a statewide initiative as well. Illinois also expanded Medicaid access to immigrants, adults 42 plus, regardless of immigration status, which was a huge increase, and will certainly help those in our community who have difficulty obtaining healthcare coverage. I'm sure there are other ones that I am missing right now. Does anybody remember anything else from the legislative session? It was short, but very busy. A couple of the initiatives that we did want to press as townships did not get through either. So some of the changes to the township code and the public assistance code that myself and some of the suburban supervisors were hoping for, sadly just didn't have the time to get through. So we will be back hopefully during veto session, but if not that, during the next session. So veto session just means we need more votes. But these are pretty, I would hope, relatively non-controversial concepts. To me, they're fixing problems in the public aid code that will make so that we can help more people with general assistance. Okay. That's the most important part. In addition to the toy lobbying day, we re-engaged the remote webmaster. One other bill that it's important for us is that the required bidding for our townships, if you recall, was any purchases for $20,000 plus, and it's generally means if you're doing construction. So usually doesn't apply to us. It's really townships with road districts. But coming up, we are planning on hopefully doing some sort of work on the roof for solar. So it is going to apply to us. And the bill that passed, and I don't believe it's signed yet, but is expected to, would increase that threshold to 30,000. And that's consistent with other units of government and recognition of inflation. However, money is different. And I'm participating in a lobby day tomorrow and Thursday to talk about increasing payouts for Social Security disability income, which have not been changed since the 70s. Yes, the 70s. Yes. So currently, if you're on Social Security disability income, you are making less than poverty. So we're not even in line with poverty yet.
$771 a month.
771 a month. So, yeah. Anyway, so hopefully that will be at least addressed. Right now, it is not a bipartisan bill. So if anyone has some insight into how that can become bipartisan. Other than, and we have been, because we were TORMA members, so the TORMA members for the previous 5 years, we did receive a dividend from TORMA. So they covered our entire fire and we got money from them. So that was kind of interesting. Obviously, the most important thing that has happened in the last month is that we saw the resignation of our longtime Director of Administration and Finance, Diane Tai, who is not sitting next to me today. We did not have notice prior to last Monday of that resignation. And certainly the last 2 weeks have been extremely busy in the office trying to find out what was going on, gain access to documents, the systems, any files. We are making progress. I want to thank the entire staff who really just dug in, and especially Larisha, who I have appointed to be our administrator at this point. I am hoping that we can make official the new structure of the office. but Larisha's doing a great job at this point. And it's been quite an endeavor. And we can answer some questions on that as well. But going through finding the contracts, finding vendors, because sadly, the literal Rolodex was taken with. It took some time to get, personal contact information to see if we can find anything. And we're slogging through. I am going to be asking the board for a declaration of a temporary emergency because I did need to engage the accountant as of the exact date.
I think last Thursday.
Yep. April 21st. For he has a 1-month contract for now. I'm hoping to keep him on. But at this point, he has been invaluable in helping us to figure out what's going on with our documents and our invoices. Especially there were considerable past due invoices, considerable, we didn't know what was paid and what wasn't. Just trying to figure out credit card situation, which was never set up. Get online, we didn't have online banking, finding the checkbooks, physical checkbooks, so that we don't miss payroll, for instance, which is set to go out on Friday. That I will ask when we talk about the reorganization. Yes.
Do you have any concerns at this point about security of any of our information or the personal identifiable information of any of our staff or constituents who come to the office?
That is it's an interesting concern. There have been concerns raised. We have cut VPN access right away. So as soon as we receive the resignation letter, all emails are being forwarded to Larisha. So that's good. And because there wasn't banking set up, we're not worried about that. But a lot of the other accounts were set up where we are having difficulty accessing them. But they would have been to Diane's Township email, we hope. Because the cost,
What has come to me, I've been able to identify the past due financial stuff, but I'm also making people aware that I'm not accountant.
Right.
But I do work on the other end of the account, not the payable, but I do work on the receivable. So it's kind of like working both ends.
Mhm.
I have let all of the vendors know that she resigned, and put myself on as the contact person. I'm still rolling my way through that. I mean, because I've been here for so long, I do know who most of the important vendors are. I have gotten service done of things that were behind, like Julie's office got painted because there was mildew damage. The light downstairs got fixed, so that was handled last week. But it is going to take quite some time.
Now we're building together, help us with that.
Rebuilding together helps us with that.
So another thank you to them. They're always huge. Yeah.
So it's going to take quite some time to kind of get through, like when you're not used to someone else's filing system and working here for such a long time. So I've been going through and taking out the important things out of her office. The thing is that we don't know what was removed.
Yes. There are a few files that are empty. We don't know what they were. We have requested all township records be returned. So we don't know if there haven't been any problems. I have no reason to believe there have been. So we will continue to monitor the situation and obviously take confidentiality of our client information very seriously. From that.
No, we're just like Gail said, like working through day by day, there's kind of like these little fires to put out pretty much every hour. The most important thing obviously is payroll. Because of the way that the stage system was being used, not to like its full potential.
Was the accounting software. We will switch to
Yeah.
QuickBooks, which is more traditional.
So the accounting firm has been really good. It's us kind of finding things that they need over
Right.
this time. So that's
Yeah.
what Gail and I are kind of tag teaming right now. They got quite a few things. They're going to be here tomorrow, but there's quite a lengthy list of things that they can't find in Sage. So I have to try to find it on paper. But they are moving along with getting everything done. And we do have IMRF access right now, which is good. Gail was able to get us into that because there are some supervisor functions. Since I was not the administrator, I cannot call the places and ask for access. So that's kind of another yeah.
Thankfully, special thanks to the fine people of Torma and IMRF who have talked to me on their hotlines throughout the last few weeks.
And we are going to get the lives changed and do like, things like that for the time being while we're going through the transition, just to make sure that, we're dotting all our I's and crossing all of our T's. I'm just more concerned about the information because there's so much information here. But it's moving along. It's just very rapid, I think.
Question for Alicia or Gail, is there like a hard drive or a computer that we should be sure that we have in our possession or something?
Or she want to cover your favorite HTML discussion?
Yeah, so Diane basically hired the IT company. So I have some obstacles with them because she asked them to only report to her. So if we put in tickets, they would pull our tickets. So we don't exactly have the best relationship with them. However, everything is backed up in the cloud. So there's no information that will be necessarily missing. Everything that was deleted can be retrieved from the cloud. They have let the accounting people remote into the computer downstairs. So in that way, all 3,000 or so of the files are also on my computer because they've been put on an external hard drive. So I'm not concerned about security issues when it comes to that, because when you do delete something out of a computer that it has a cloud, you're really not deleting it. So we're working on that as well. Just right now, it's not the time to go through another transition to somebody else. So we're just working with what we have right now. But Gail and I are going to meet with the president because I want to know about the contracts. I want to know what they, what our working relationship with them is supposed to be like, because we don't know that information. So that's going to be happening sooner or later.
Right. Simply reviewing what the agreements were and what they need to be now. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I have to say, his email was absolutely, just sort of great to know, glad we'll be working together, blah, blah, blah. So no, no stonewalling, no suspicion,
Right.
nothing. So
yeah,
good. I made me comfortable.
Yeah. So we did in my discussions, and they've been great in my discussions with them in this transition. There have been tickets that have been essentially turned off. So where we were assuming that they were just not responsive, they've been told not to do X, Y, or Z. And so, like, for instance, we're working on our visual GA transition. We discussed that last month. Visual GA is essentially software that we have, but we haven't been utilizing, essentially to check in to the pantry using a scanning card. Because right now you fill out a form and it just goes into, yeah. So there's confidentiality concern, but also we're able to track usage much better. And we were able to say like, oh, so-and-so has X amount of children, they should be contacted about scholarships like that. It will be able to actually cross-reference the information. So I'm really excited about it. When we went to see it, Northfield's on it, I was just like, this is amazing.
Right now, I enter it by hand.
Yeah.
So I do all of this in Excel. So I'll be really glad to get rid of that. And it will just improve the pantry, the functions, because sometimes we have people stacked on top of each other. We have to say, please put out in the hallway. So it will be much easier. And then also to like transition people back into shopping in the pantry, because the pantry is a big, really, really big undertaking. And it stops all of us from doing what we're doing, and we have to automatically give attention to the pantry. So it will improve the efficiency. So we're moving towards that as well.
Yep. But the issue is we were waiting on physical hardware, computers, printers, that to make that transition, and those were not in. So we're certainly a lot closer now that we're have the proper requests and in motion. So I'm very excited about that transition. Any other questions? We'll also obviously discuss go into the reorganization. Okay. We are now in line for the clerk's reports. Oh, sorry, the financial reports. We did not obviously receive a financial report from Diane, but she did give us the end of year financial reports, I believe on April 1st. Yes, April 1st. And I'm just going to put your attention to it because we're going to need that when I discuss the line item budget. Both the year to date, the normal year to budget documents, that's the one we printed for you all. Both that and your traditional, what's our current status of the BMO accounts, those are both online for the public to see, and those were online as soon as we got them. Obviously, we had distilled it down to its most salient parts in the annual report. So I'm glad that went out. And for the most part, our projections were accurate. I've got some good feedback on having that in the annual report this year. So I'm glad it did. And another kindergartner who was really excited about it. So please keep that in mind. Clerk's report. Mm-hmm. This is the one. Oh, sorry. I have to send them around. Just for the trustees. Sorry, you were looking at the line item. That's my proposal. Yeah, that's later on the agenda. Sorry about that. That is an important difference. Absolutely. So this is the full year. So you can, because when we talk about the line items, you'll see if, obviously if we used an entire line item, we should keep it there or more. And if we weren't even close, we should probably have a little bit more truth in budgeting. Because right now we budget way over our actual expenditures. And I think it doesn't look good for the public. It's also just not how we're actually spending our money. So that's important for the line item. But this is the real life. Great. Clerk's report now.
I just also wanted to say a thank you to the board and staff for the annual town meeting. I was just so proud to be part of this group because everyone stepped up to help. I mean, Stefan helped with emotion and was there, and everyone else gave appropriate, wonderful speeches, and I just really appreciated everyone coming together. It was awesome to see. I did want to say that for passport applications, we have put a pause on them and are not taking additional appointments until June 1st with the staffing changes and shortages. But also, I just, speaking with Larisha, there's been a lot of high demand of people wanting to get their passports renewed. And you probably hear on the news, like I do, of all the expected travel to Europe this summer.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling you can definitely see that in the calls to the township of people wanting to do applications. And Larisha does have a full schedule or to have pending passport applications. we thought just to put a pause on it for just a little bit, just because of the high demand of that and just the other responsibilities. So we will open it back up early summer. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the only trained passport agent.
That's right,
here.
that's right.
Yeah.
Although in the reorganization, I saw something that suggested that maybe.
So, and when we get to there, we can discuss it. The idea is to have an additional passport agent, yes.
And then, you know, since this board started, we've made a push for more transparency and to having more things on our website. And we haven't had that many FOIA requests in my tenure. But recently, there have been quite a few FOIA requests. So we are going to still keep pushing for transparency, keep working on the website, making sure everything's available in such a way. And Julie's been really great with me working with the system we're coming up with to track their FOIA requests and really just getting that information out to the public as well. But definitely since the annual town meeting, the public has really wanted a few things about that. And also just there were questions of some of our numbers in our annual report as well. So we are responding to those FOIA requests. But other than that, I think ready to go on to the approval, and then, oh, I guess I could just say the budget ordinance, the notice is in your board packets. You know, I'm new to this job, and I read the handbook and looked at the statute, and Julie and I together, we don't have the local paper, but we did put it in the dispatch, and we did post it in 5 places like we're supposed to, and the libraries have been willing to work with us really well. So that's what we did for the public notice there, 30 days beforehand, so that budget hearing's on May 10th.
Like really jumps into things. And I love that about her because our personalities are very similar because we like critical thinking. So she does jump in, and I know that being the new person, because I've done it, can be like intimidating, but I do also believe, especially stepping into this role, that it's important to like recognize your staff because our morale has been very low for a very long time. So I do want to shout Julie out because she literally does a lot.
Yes. And like I said at the annual town meeting, she still picks up the phone every time I call her.
I just want to commend you, Nicole, for putting on an outstanding foundation. Everybody else helped, and it's a team effort. And there were some surprises. Nobody was expecting. Everybody surprised that, but they were handled pretty well. If you do get any FOIA requests that are that are unusual or out of the ordinary or that are worrisome, I guess share them with us. But every so often, our experience has been that every 3rd or 4th year, we can get bombarded by some of the same folks that show
Yes.
up and kind of keep us on our toes, so to speak. Every now and then, you might get something that's really potentially a little bit outside the normal scope of things. Feel free to share that with us.
Yes, so we've definitely have one pending right now that we're working on and trying to figure out how to respond to. Reading the statute, it's definitely requesting information that is not public information, that is private information. So.
We have counsel if we have.
Yeah.
And I just also want to echo everyone's sentiments. Nicole, I think you did an outstanding job putting together the meeting. I know it was a big undertaking, and there was certainly a lot of unexpected stress at the meeting, and you just handled it beautifully. And just so thank you for all of your efforts.
Thanks so much. That everyone after that will be much easier.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the approval of the meeting minutes from March 8th. Is there such a motion? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from March 8th, 2022, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, and the budget ordinance is available for inspection. Thank you. We are now in line for the assessor's report. Madam Assessor. Yes.
For the most part, there is no news yet. once they reconcile all the information we get from hearings, then they can move to publishing results subject to review, which doesn't take all that long, and then they're done. But of course, that's last year. We're talking year 2021 here. The assessor, county assessor, still has not opened any township or appeal in 2022. It's really, it just keeps kicking the can down the road in terms of when that second tax bill is going to be due. And I was not joking 2 weeks ago when I said you're probably not going to pay it until 2023. That is the official word from people in the treasurer's department at one of our assessors meetings. That it looks very unlikely that that bill will be available until late in the year and not get paid in 2022, which has no effect on residents, except of course the first bill for this year will come kicking right behind it 3 weeks later. But the treasurer's department doesn't intend, treasurer's office doesn't intend to wait. But the effect might be on agents that are not getting their funding. Very simply, if they have to take out a loan or have some kind of actual obligation, they're not going to be able to meet that. That's where the issue is with the second tax bill is there's no money.
And that would go for all the municipal entities, including us.
Could be
Everybody has to take
anything.
that into
Yes, it could be anything. Obviously, with 60% of the property taxes going towards schools, the schools are the most at risk for needing something somewhere along the way. But yeah, it affects every single agency that uses property taxes as all or part of their budget, operating budgets. Sure.
Sharon typically gets about September, October.
August 1st.
August 1st.
August 1st.
With payment due like August 31st.
No, August, no, it bills out in July, August 1st, due date. It's worked for a whole decade or more.
And if it's delayed 5 or 6 months, I mean, don't they understand the implications they don't have?
You might think about that when you're them now. I mean, you have to understand. What's happening? There was it was a Zoom. It was a meeting in early April. By I can't even remember now. It did it state level organization that Katie spoke at. And he said the Board of Review is responsible for the delays. I mean, flat out. That is simply not true due to the fact that the Board of Review is not even in as part of the cycle for any jurisdiction until the assessor has finished it. Period. It can't be done. So I'm surprised they couldn't hear me downtown, which I screamed at my computer when I heard that, but that's not possible.
One option, possibly a better option, can get your act together, just keep that payment flat at the last payment, and then adjust it later on, and you got all your.
I would assume he has options available, but I don't know what they are, and I don't know what it takes to put something into effect, whether there needs to be a county level ordinance or regulation passed as an exception or something like an emergency powers declaration. I mean, I really have no idea what that would entail. But yeah, I mean, for all I know, maybe it does have a plan to cover potential shortfalls that will help some cases. I wouldn't know. But yeah, I hope you're right that there are measures that can be taken. And I also, just the first quarter statistics for 2022 are attached here. Okay, as well. So we are all up to date. I think though that everything else is, there's other stuff in the report. It's simple stuff. It was pretty normal for us this quarter, actually.
And did you want to mention the new exemption that you won't have to reapply for? We were discussing.
Oh, you mean the exemption situation right now is the notices did go out in later than initially spoken for, of course, to all residents carrying over all their exemptions from 2020 or 2021, with a couple hundred exceptions in our case, most of which relate to 2021 sales, which makes sense. Because if there was a sale in 2021, that can change the status of available exemptions on property. So those people are supposed to have gotten booklets by now telling them they would have to apply or have to apply for certain exemptions, but we haven't heard from anybody that they've gotten them yet. and we haven't gotten any email announcements that they've gone out yet. They were supposed to go out in the middle of April. But so eventually there will be some people who will have to apply anew for exemptions, or at least verify that they have them. And the forms have been available online now for a while, and they are much more efficient. They allow for doctors to sign. They don't have to get the same amount of, they have to have the same items of backup information, but it's not as difficult to get them. And one of the things that we're actually doing more of now is that since everything can be done online, there are an awful lot of people out there though who do not upload documents much. So they don't know how to upload a copy of their driver's license, for instance, or how to upload a tax bill. So we're doing more uploading for them, even if it's just giving them copies of things and sending them back. It doesn't matter. They're perfectly happy to take a stab at it. But they're not really all that happy with the idea of being responsible if it doesn't work out well, which is fine. So that's, I think it will, eventually in another generation or so, it'll all work. Because with people retiring like mad all the time, there are lots of seniors who don't do all that stuff, and that's all there is to it. That's nothing, right?
And one of the legislative changes that I forgot to mention was that you, just like the senior exemption that you don't have to reapply for anymore because once you're a senior. Now, if you have a permanent disability, you have a disability, and you won't have to reapply for it. So that's a change to the law as well.
Oh, and that's a reminder that I will update on top, but it happens. The president of the Illinois State Senate is the senator for that coverage district that our township assessor association president is in, and they've had a good working relationship for years. And we have authorized Lee to take several other suggestions to him for improving exemption status, raising the limit on the freeze, maybe a couple of other things, odds and ends, just as things come along. And so I'll just allocate people as he gets farther along in that process. But it's a very good year to hang out.
Absolutely. You guys really are the ears of the people dealing with it. Thank you. Are there any questions for Assessor Churchwell? Okay, we're now ready for new committee members. We've been presented with 2 applications for committees. I believe they're both for mental health committee. Is there any discussion?
It's event planning.
It is, yes.
Event planning. She said a little something.
In Winnetka, yeah.
These folks might be husband and wife. It looks like they look like a wonderful addition to our mental health committee. I strongly recommend it.
Any other discussion? All right. Is there a motion to approve the committee members, Lisa McCowan and Joseph McCowan?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank them for volunteering. Committee liaison reports. We'll start with mental health.
Our next meeting is coming Monday, May 2nd, evening.
Agency oversight.
It was nice to see so many committee members, agency oversight committee members recognized at the town hall meetings. That was really nice.
Absolutely. Money follows the person. Right. And as Brian notes in his report, the letters, the various committees worked very hard on the letters. Those will be going out tomorrow, likely tomorrow. Pure jury.
But we had 2 new cases this month, and they both went very well, I thought. And with some new youth officers showing up in the first time. When we have, I don't know about our new cases for this coming month, May, but I believe we have a case from Glencoe coming in and hopefully another one. So we're slowly but surely ramping back up. So we had 2 new cases and 3 returns in April.
Elliot, if you don't mind me asking, in Brian's report, he mentions that that our referrals have been coming from Winnetka, Northfield, and now Glencoe. What,
Maybe
yeah,
Glencoe.
Wilmette has traditionally been our most prolific referral. Do you have a concept of why they haven't resumed?
So this is what I think. So Northfield's kind of overtaken Wilmette in recent years because of the freshman campus and activity having to do with vaping and a bunch of vandals.
Mm-hmm.
Wilmette has implemented about 3-4 years ago an administrative type of a program where they can take juveniles that have committed offenses and figure out a way to monetize that and handle it. The police department that Brian and I talked to, so they swear that they don't believe that's going on at all, but I have to believe that there could be some diversion of potential cases from peer jury to administrative processes. I'm just speculating, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. I know that the program is highly regarded by the entire Wilmette police force. And I think that, if we don't start getting some new cases from that now that COVID's winding down and the kids are going to be active this summer, I think Brian and I should consider going up a level and meeting with administrative officials instead of just meeting with the police department. That's it. We got nothing to lose. We can talk to them about it, and we can do it very tactfully. But it's all speculation on my part.
Okay.
Are you talking about administrating people not in the police department and the government?
The people that would be in charge of the administrative fine program, the administrative ordinance program, that designed that program.
Thank you. And are there any questions regarding the committees? Acknowledgement of staff reports. Is there any discussion about the staff reports from our community services administrator, our social services administrator, and our community and support services associates?
So I know that Brian isn't here, but I couldn't help but see on the first page of his report that he would like to see more people on oversight. You've got 9 people on money plus diversity, 10 on mental health, and 8. Is there any chance that we could have somebody from mental health to move to oversight, at least to even things out? So it might be worth, just floating with him to see if there will be any interest that he sees on at least rejiggering as between those two to make equal. And per his note that it would be nice to have a little bit more coverage on oversight. It was just a thought that I had in looking with him.
Absolutely. And I know, we'll make a larger push for more committee members as we get through the summer, because the crux of the work is in the fall. So I think it makes sense to have new committee members start around then. But I share your interest in that. A lot of people choose their committees or, their most favored committee based on their interest and their passion. They'd hate to move anyone. So we did see a couple of committee members who retired from one committee, moved to another, and that's amazing. So definitely appreciate that. There are a couple of dates that I should probably point out in Julie's report. Just as a reminder, we have the paper shred on May 7th. The memorial, and that's obviously very, has been both very popular and very not popular. So with your help, I hope we can bring it into the manageable section. But Regina Dominican, who we've given a word to at the annual meeting for their support of our programming, will be hosting again. I think it'll be a great time. So we will send out some information about opportunities to volunteer. I know many of you have in the past. Can be as much as waving people in to lifting up boxes. There's ways to help. And for Memorial Day, we will participate in the Memorial Day Unity Parade and program with Wilmette, part of the Centennial 150th, right? So if you're interested in marching, it is great exercise and a way to, it is on Memorial Day Monday. Yes, I believe we leave, it kicks off at 9 a.m. You leave from St. Joe's and you walk to Wilmette Village Square. So it is a bit, but it's not Glencoe's. So, which was, I heard after that. The St. Joe's, they're having a Memorial Day 5K run, and they're giving their proceeds towards the food pantry. So that's fabulous as well. So really, Memorial Day is coming up, and we are working on a date to redo our healthcare power of attorney clinic with the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic. Yes, Julie? Great. So that is meant for graduating seniors before they go off to college, so that they have, so those who are 18, their parents can still have some ability to get access, because 18-year-olds may not be ready for all the powers of adulthood, and they want to share. But we had good attendance last time on Zoom, so I think there's a need for that kind of program again. And we have worked in the past with Jan and Len. Len is a notary public, so hopefully we'll be able to work with him again. Absolutely. So it's also just a good intro to the township for many people who otherwise wouldn't have interacted with us well. And then obviously keep the date for October 22nd, the Fall Wellness Fair. I'm so excited about this. Julie's putting a lot of effort into it. And it should be a fabulous event with the North Shore Senior Center, as well as many partners. Do you want to mention anything about that, or?
No, I think working on an exciting, very much in the wellness spectrum, from skin to financial to fitness, so it's all over.
Yeah, they have a great location. We had our annual meeting there
The first ones
at the North Shore Senior Center. Yeah.
The first ones are challenged, so it's great. In fact, we had suggestions, for promoting and or for food.
Yeah.
Is it just for seniors or is this all?
No,
ages?
it's
Okay.
township wide.
Okay.
And so we're hoping to have some things that will appeal to different age groups.
Okay.
We have a ton of new, stretching labs and, kind of fitness, groups. It might be worth reaching out to them, if, and say, even if you can't do a booth or something, to, maybe they could promote to their listservs, and on their social media, that this is something that's happening, around. So that's just a thought to get to another demographic.
That is true.
Talk to you about that then.
Totally. And actually, one of the two chambers of commerce has a wellness subgroup. And I'd have to go through my email to figure out which one, because they kind of meld at some point. But yeah. But yeah. And then tomorrow is the Winnetka Kenilworth Chamber of Commerce lunch, and was going today. So I'll be there, and they are honoring the other Yale Eisenberg. I got a little Google alert. So congrats to her.
Jean's report.
Mhm.
On the second page. About the boarding task force, if that May 24th meeting is only in person, if that's virtual as well.
I do not know if it's virtual as
Normally
well.
those are in person, but I
Mhm.
think the scope of that has actually obviously changed because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
Jean used to have boarding task force meetings up here. But I don't know, sometimes I feel like they switch locations. It's not really that big of a group. I think that some of them are social workers and they just all get together. Because I know that there's issues with hoarding in some of our pantry clients you know. But I haven't seen her do it in quite some time, so it's a possibility that it's Zoom, but I'm not really sure.
Where am I? Now I lost the agenda. Okay. There we go. All right, we're now in line for new business. We are proposing to increase the income thresholds for financial assistance. Let me grab, so that's the one that was paper clipped for you. Okay, so essentially we have not updated our max incomes for our financial aid programs in over a decade, I want to say. I believe we had voted to do so within the last 4 years, and it does not appear like it actually was implemented. In the last term, so the proposal is to increase it to 250%, 250% of the current federal poverty level. So we were at 2013 levels before, and 250 I'm proposing because that is in line with what our social services agencies are using as need. So it would be consistent across the board. I do know that Niles is even higher than that, but many of the other townships are lower. So I think it would be a good kind of even a good middle ground. Is there any discussion about increasing the thresholds for financial assistance?
Increasing the threshold, layman's terms, makes it a little harder does it make it harder or easier?
Easier.
Easier.
Right. So under the 200, if you're looking at the 250 of 2022 federal poverty, let's say you're a family of 4, you would qualify as long as you're not making, as long as you're making less than 69,000. Yeah.
Increasing the threshold. We actually want to lower the bar. We want to decrease the obstacle.
Decrease the obstacle, right?
So that's a little.
You're right. Yes, absolutely. But certainly, part of the impetus was someone posting about how expensive camps were, and I said, "Oh, well, we offer financial assistance for camps," and they said, "Who in the township meets those thresholds?" Because a family of 4, we're talking 52,000, which there are certainly families we know we do give them assistance, but there, it has not obviously gone in line with inflation and the power of money. So, yeah. That's a very good point. I think it is another reason to increase. Absolutely. It was something I was thinking of prior, so it wasn't really the impetus, but it is a great reason to improve this number.
If that 250 seems to kind of be in the middle I would move to approve the 250.
I would say middle, but I would say a much higher than many of the less affluent areas, but lower than the most generous. Yes. So there's the motion on the floor. Is there a second? Any additional conversation? I'll call the question because I would like this to be a roll call because it is a major change to our policy. Madam Clerk? Yes.
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 Right.
And Howard was too small to qualify.
We're in there somewhere.
No,
I'm
it is
shocked,
true. That's for you. Yep. those are big numbers. And I think it really makes it even harder for people to come admit that they need help. Because yeah, it's difficult to say I'm an outlier. And we know that many people who were in those levels, disease, divorce, all the D's that Brian uses when he does his outreach can hit anyone. So, all right, thank you. We are now in discussion pantry eligibility. So as you'll see in the fiscal year 2022, end of year report, if you go to dial-a-ride, you'll see we only used 17% of our budgeted allowance. Dial-a-ride essentially, and you know what, I'll have let me kind of explain the program.
So Dial Ride is a subsidy that we pay for through 303 and American Taxi. I have about 1,000 people in the Dial Ride system. We made 10%. Sometimes I feel that people do not understand what the spirit of the program is. So we have a lot of people who have issues with getting to the pantry. We are only probably at about 30% of our pantry usage. Even if you throw COVID in there, it's still considerably low because some people are disabled. Some people don't have a car. Some people don't have any family to get them here. So at our last staff meeting, we discussed giving the pantry clients dial-a-ride eligibility. Quite a few of them do already have it, but it's not currently, the parameters are not currently set to accommodate the people who are just in the pantry, like you're automatically in the dial-a-ride program. That $6 is still good to get people. You have to be traveling within the township. So you can go from anywhere and end up here, or you can go from here and go anywhere else. You have to start inside of the township in order to be eligible. But that $6 can get somebody from here back to Wilmette, back to Winnetka. But you can't have a wheelchair. It's kind of not for people who are disabled in those ways. So there are some restrictions, but it is really helpful for the people who do have issues with transportation. We have a big issue with people trying to get to the pantry.
And right now you have to be older, or
You have to be 18 to 64 with a disability or 65 and older to qualify for dial-a-ride right now. So we are trying to extend that to everybody who currently comes for the pantry.
And with respect to the, as you mentioned, the little wheelchair, is the mobility access?
Right.
That's what that's supposed to cover?
Yes.
Yes.
But they do not currently have volunteers. Ever since COVID hit, nobody has been volunteering to drive people around. And that's the basis of their whole program, is volunteerism.
Okay.
So we have not been able to accommodate people, sadly, because people do always call asking about transportation, especially to medical.
And Case does have, you can order
They do have the
door to door. Now, my understanding is it needs significant improvement, but that program exists. No need to reinvent the wheel on that.
Yes,
Senior,
So is it
yeah.
their volunteers or our volunteers?
it's their volunteers.
And then in the changing world that we're in now, for instance, my kids don't know what a taxi is. They only know what Uber is. Now, I know that's not the demographic that are served by that, right? It may not be time to discuss this, but I want to put it on the table. Maybe we have to modify that program in some way so as to include and or some other destination, because the concept of taxis is kind of arcane at this point.
I agree with you. I did a survey of Cook County supervisors just to get a concept of who they're using. And I haven't heard anybody who has an Uber-like program. I think what would be interesting is to have that be a toy collective bargain, if you will. I think it's something that we could really work together on as townships. Because a lot of those rideshare companies have did some great work, especially in COVID, getting people to vaccinations. Like they do have, some interest in that kind of work. So I feel like there could be some appetite. Yeah, and getting people to polls, they do that a lot too. Yeah. So yeah, it would be interesting to see if we can create some sort of deal with them. On the list. So is there a motion to permit pantry clients to use the dial-a-ride transportation assistance irrespective of their disability or age? Is there a second? Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I'm gonna have to table public comment policy because I forgot to attach it. So, so I will go ahead and do that. That's gonna be, I'm not reinventing anything there either, but I borrowed from other municipalities. But I should have attached it so you can consider it. Unless, Stefan, do you have any recollection of a previous public comment policy? We just couldn't find. Yeah. Yes, because theoretically, we could have one, but we have we don't know where it is. So well, exactly. Yeah. So we did that one just the annual meeting, and now we should have one that's just standing. So we'll do that at our next meeting. It's tabled to May 10th. All right, BMO Harris other new business.
Economic impact.
Yes.
And my question is, would you complete the first question in its entirety? Because that form has added
It has.
as of this year. And I have some real reservations about it. And I haven't completed the form because I have some real reservations about it. I'm curious if I was the only one that felt that way, or if there's any other feedback on it. Because
Let's see if I can find it.
that form now is a loaded gun. They're asking us to declare any assets we have over $10,000. And it's a public record. So that once you complete that form, your personal information is now in the public forum. And I have nothing to hide, but I don't want everybody knowing my business for volunteer jobs, which I basically get $72 a month. I understand if I was a U.S. Senator or U.S. Congressman, but at the level that we operate with, I'm not offended by it, and I understand why it was passed by the legislation, but I have a real concern about what they're asking. And I don't know if I'm alone in that, or if anybody else feels similarly, but the form's due on Monday. I have not completed my form.
That is a really good point. I thankfully it exempted most of the things that I had, so that was good. Like your house is exempt. I believe it decided not to include your house. I had to go through the instructions in a lot of detail in order to fill that thing out. I felt you had to have at least a JT for that thing. It was really complicated.
It's complicated and it's asking for information. Now, I understand the relevancy in terms of conflict of interest and that kind of stuff, but we're basically volunteers and we're being asked to divulge our entire portfolio. And I have a real problem with that, and I don't know what to do about it, to be quite honest. I mean, I've been going everywhere from, I refuse to answer this question. Do I have various investment and retirement accounts? So listing some of the banks that I do business with, but it's not just banks. I mean, so does anybody have any input that would be helpful in that regard?
I'm nervous, but I misread it.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate for a township. I'm not sure I understood it. I filled it out to the best of my ability. I'll let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, I guess we don't have the power to change it, but we do have the power to tell our legislators if you feel that it is intrusive.
I would say fill it out to the best of your ability, however you want to fill it out, and let the chips fall where they may. We have a job to serve, and we'll serve it until somebody removes us from office.
The other problem with that, and I appreciate where you're coming from, the only problem with that is that is now required by law did some research.
You understand the form differently than I do. I don't understand it. I think it's a poorly drafted form. I filled it out to the best of my ability. And I just don't think that we need to air this publicly.
So what I will say is that there is an article in Township Officials of Illinois that may help. It's more on the practical side than on the philosophical, should it exist. But I'll do point that out to you. We can't give you legal advice.
I've gotten.
Right.
You have to complete the form correctly, or you're subject to sanction and penalties and all sorts of nice little tidbits. And that's where it meets the road form.
Yeah.
So I'm very confused. And I don't know what the upshot's gonna be by next time. So I can't afford it. I really don't. I have real reservations about it.
Well, do keep us posted. But yes.
I hear everything that you're saying. I haven't, in all honesty, I haven't read it on yet, so go through it, but hearing everything that you're saying does.
Well, that's why I raised- that's why I raised it. I thought it was-
Yeah.
I disagree. I think it's absolute form.
But we can't do anything about it in this legislation.
There was other portions of that discussion, I believe, that Trustee Moser was bringing up. That was appropriate and necessary for us. So. Do you have a motion?
Well, what is the motion? I mean, you
I
might-
would challenge form. I would ask council position that the questions are inappropriate given our relationship and so if you ask me what I would ask for, that's what
I would support that motion with the caveat that it also, that the form is almost, it's poorly worded, it's difficult to understand. It's very difficult. So it's hard to understand, number one. I didn't understand it. I filled it out to the best of my ability. And secondly, I would join you in it. I think that we should take a stand.
So the motion on the floor, was that a second?
Yeah, it is a second.
Okay. Please let me know if I'm restating this properly. Would be for New Trier Township to challenge the validity.
And it's poorly, it's not understandable. It's just,
Well, I'll go further. The state copied the county or the county copied the state, but that's statewide now.
It is.
Every municipality, every government body now is using that same form. And take a look, guys, because when you look at it, I read it, and I read it, and I reread it, I read the statute, and I don't like it. And I'm not. I raised the point.
Maybe there should be a threshold where it doesn't apply. I mean, it's said, large teams, congressmen, whatever, but at the level.
Some,
Depending on the council.
and that's an important form. That's a public record.
Yeah.
That is enforceable by the state. That really-
Right. There have been a number of people who, for failure to fill it out, have gotten in a lot of trouble.
Right.
what kind of trouble?
There's fines, there's heavy fines, and then go further if they.
You can kick off
From your office.
You can be removed from office, kick off the ballot if you're running for something else.
Unless you resign and protest. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I agree with you. I'm not sure I understand it. I mean, I have to go back.
I think it's not challenging the validity of it. I think it's challenging the reasonableness of
Yes, that's. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at.
Is there a way to see the form without creating the account and going through all those steps? I tried to Google it and couldn't see it. Did you only see it when like you create?
I can show you mine. It's a public document.
Never seen it before.
You gotta open it up.
Yeah.
First question would be, when I called the accountant about it, the guy said, oh, you're calling about question number one.
Yeah.
In other words, you were not.
And then he said, talk to your ethics officer. And I said, we don't have an ethics officer. He said, well, then talk to your legal counsel.
And you have the ability as a township official to speak to the township council. So feel free to do that. But yeah, so the first question for those who are interested, if you have a single asset that is worth more than $10,000 as of the end of the preceding calendar year and is held or payable to your name, held jointly by or payable to you with your spouse, or held jointly by or payable to you with your minor child, list such assets. In the case of investment in real estate, list the city and state where the investment real estate is located. If you do not have any such assets, list none below. And then you, of course, had to also click on the instructions clicker to get additional information.
And then
The definitions, yes,
definition section. The definition section says,
right.
any government issues changes exclude like stocks, bonds, CD, interest in partnerships, beneficial interest in trust are all included under that provision.
Yes.
And this isn't something that we need to, we're not posting this. There's somebody-
We are not posting them. It is a public record. And it is something that has been FOIA'd many a time.
And when I went to like go and to click on the link they sent me, there's a whole section of like, here's yours. Here you can search everyone that's been filed. So it's pretty easy to search for.
Right.
If you're really looking.
Which I understand the point, but yes,
So you filled it out in its
I
entirety.
did, but I also don't have it. So it was a little simpler. I did.
So there's a motion to object to the recent.
It was New Trier Township challenges the reasonableness of the current economic disclosure form. And it's asking too much information, poorly written and not understandable.
It's we're
Intrusive.
challenging the intrusiveness, the scope. And it's poorly drafted. It's unintelligible for
And for
for
drafting,
people that have modest.
Intrusiveness, scope, and intelligibility
Yeah.
of question one.
And that's not going to have a motion. But I
Mhm.
don't- that's sort of asking.
So is there any additional discussion? And my understanding is that should this motion pass, we would develop a letter essentially so I'm just looking at this one's filed with Cook County, but it's not Cook County's, because Cook County has jurisdiction over the local governments within Cook County, but it is not, but it is a statewide form. Mhm. Right. Trying to figure out who enforces that.
I'm not looking for-
Has toilets and any, has toilets.
No, they put a whole thing on here, but
Right.
yeah.
But
And
like we can't be the only ones.
no, we're not.
In the toy network that are saying. This is too much.
Yes, and they similarly have mentioned it on every, Friday open call. But they haven't mentioned not doing it, to my knowledge. I'm just trying to see if I can figure out enforcement mechanism. You said state's attorneys?
I'm not sure of where it's going to go. What
Right,
impact it's gonna
okay.
have, how to play it. I was looking at you guys for some
Right,
I really don't know.
okay. So certainly encourage you to discuss with township council and personal counsel. But the motion has been withdrawn. Seeing no additional new business or continuing business, you should be seeing a document that you've seen a few times before, the BMO Harris resolution. Okay. All right. Oh, wait, so that I've gotten permission now to change. So, and I put you down first, so yeah, yeah.
But
Now you're done.
that's if the supervisor is incapacitated.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that's the correct word because incapacitated in my world implies that you're disabled,
Mhm.
that you are unable, and I don't know that incapacitated is the right word.
I'd be open to a revision to that. Essentially, one thing that I've been reviewing it in more detail that I thought was interesting is that this does not, that list. First of all, we really do need to pass it tonight because we don't have credit cards, and we need to get new credit cards because they are gone now. So we do need to get credit cards, and so we can pay bills. So that's number one. Number two, the list here is simply the authorized officer, but if you look in the next portion, it talks about the deputy, essentially saying that, I can deputize, if I'm just not around, I can say you're now the authorized signer. That's fine. I'm worried about the time where I don't tell someone there's a deputy because, God forbid. That's what I was really thinking, but if there's, yeah.
And I'm not saying you would, but since we're going through what we are going through right now,
Exactly.
I want to make sure that if you leave in the middle of the night and we can't get to you, we don't know if you are incapacitated. What is the word that we would use
That's a good point.
for
Okay.
a second? It's got to be more than she's on a plane, I'm thinking, and I'm thinking out loud, but something to the effect or impact of, in the event of the incapacity or inavailability of the supervisor, after, and we would have to qualify it, so it's not the unavailability, after, commercially reasonable,
What?
You don't think unavailability alone is sufficient? The capacity is
Theoretically.
kind of vague, but Stefan has a very strong understanding of capacity.
That's
right,
Yeah.
sure.
But if we go with a vague term like incapacity, we say incapacity or unavailability.
That's
Incapacity,
what I would.
without adding further.
Okay. I just wanted to make clear that it's not, you're not going to start signing everything because she's on a plane for 4 hours. I just want to, that it's,
We see it.
It's-
Extended unavailability.
Unavailability is kind of broad.
It does seem broad. Yeah.
Extended unavailability.
Right. It's because it's meant to not be like, oh, she didn't answer the text.
Yes.
right.
Okay. Right. Would extended be? That's my question.
Oh, or, could we say something like, you'll let us know if you're going to be, on vacation for 2
Right.
weeks in, Europe.
Right. Then I can
But-
deputize. Yeah.
Right, and you could, right. So maybe tied in with that concept of incapacity, or unavailability, or like unexcused
about
availability. Or, yeah.
I like extended unavailability
Yeah.
or extended.
My question was the relationship of this potential government accounting
Mhm.
entity and this document here.
Right.
Because the passing out of Howard Simon on payroll, I mean, is government accounting or Howard Simon going to be signing any check?
No, they would be acting the same way that Diane was. They provide me the checks. I go through them and find them physically. Yep.
And we don't want somebody else to be signing checks, even if it's like even if it could be done safely and create efficiency.
I can deputize. So if I owe I'm out of town or something, because that is, it is always a concern, like especially with the general assistance fund. That is time dependent, time sensitive. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No GAI people are signing.
No, same way. Yeah, they're not authorized. Any other changes to the BMO? And if you saw on the PDF, they highlighted the one so that we could see that it's weirdly but accurately numbered. Seeing none, I would now entertain a motion to adopt the BMO Harris resolution regarding the designation of authorized officers and activities. With the change. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, call the question. And I think we should do a roll call. Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Robin.
Yes.
Trustee Mosier. Trustee Rubin.
Okay. All right. Let's make sure that gets to them tonight. Okay. Now we turn. Oh,
Trustee Mosier needs to sign as well.
no. Oh, I do want him to sign as a on the side as a specimen. So that is, yeah. So that they know what your signature. Yep. Mhm.
Maurice, could you scan it for us? So,
Yes.
I think.
Okay. Reorganization. If you go to. We go to the multi-page document listed new chair positions 2022. I have made a number of changes to this document based on your discussion at the last board meeting, but I've also included proposed salaries as well, because it'll then be integrated into the line item budget. And you'll see that there's that additional position that we had discussed. Community partnerships coordinator would be the proposal. This would be likely a hourly position, because it does involve, I think, because of the evening and also because it is kind of seasonal, but could be persuaded that it should be otherwise. But it would involve the shadowing of Brian during that first portion of the job. So shadowing him for the next fall's funding period, and then taking over that funding process, and then really being our connection to our agencies. Also then becoming a passport provider, especially for the after school crowd, and possibly evenings. That is all new, and certainly welcome any discussion that you might have. I proposed what is currently the Cook County living wage as the hourly wage, which is higher than what we've usually given for our hourly workers. So, which I would then suggest we use for our additional hourly work, which would be Julia, who's coming in to help us during Jean's leave of absence, as you saw in her reports, to take over some of those social services, social worker functions while she's out. Are there any discussions about the position descriptions?
I would start off by saying that in a general sense, Ryan does so much.
Right.
The pure jury stuff he does is great. Family stuff he does is great. But dealing with these agencies, this is $1.6 million of our budget. And we're gonna bring somebody on at minimum wage, part-time, and we hope that he or she is somehow gonna be Bill Ryan's shoes. Like, to me, it's just incomprehensible. I mean,
Minimum wage is well, $13. It'll be $15 in July, I believe.
this is the most important position in the township. This is $1.6 million last year are going to these agencies. Brian, it's taken Brian decades to get up to speed, and he has so much knowledge. And in my opinion, he's been probably overtasked and underpaid for all the three things he does. But I think this is the most important job in the township, as far as I'm concerned, because of the amount of taxpayer money that actually ends up going to these agencies. So I think we're underestimating the amount of acumen that's required and the amount of expertise that's going to be required to do this job properly. But that's just a general comment. I think a great deal of work, Gail, went into this delegating responsibilities. And I mean, there's a lot of work that went into this. I think it's 90%. I have no problem with it, but this is the one position that I think we might be neglecting or underestimating. And I've sat on all three committees over a period of multiple years. I just know that that's the most important thing Brian does.
Yes, and no, I don't disagree that it is. First of all, it's half of our budget. This portion, so the 2022 portion of the payments, is a shadowing job essentially. And yes,
They get paid.
exactly. So he's still here at the same time. So as you can see in the next section, and it's a little complicated because we're kind of developing this role to allow for the overlap, thankfully. He gave us this knowledge and ability to transition. So essentially, obviously we're stuck with what we put in this budget until the next budget cycle. But it's not a forever concept. I would anticipate that person, as they become more senior and more knowledgeable about the role, will similarly become, just as important to our township.
There's a great deal of reading that somebody needs to do before getting his or her feet on the ground. I mean, the nuances of each one of these agencies and what they're doing right and where they're weak and where they're going. I mean, it's just there's a lot of booking up that needs to be done to hit the ground running with this position. So, I mean, I think this is a real effort at trying to carve out a position, but I'm just suggesting in terms of prioritizing what's important. This is really important. And Brian, it's taken him a long time to really have the command that he has.
Absolutely.
And everybody knew that nobody's going to be here forever. Brian is going to be here forever, and I think it's great that he still wants to hang on in a limited capacity. And his skill with pure jury and his skill with the food pantry is exceptional. We're thrilled that he wants to stick around in those two capacities. But this is a big undertaking here. I want to incent somebody with the requisite skill and acumen. I mean, somebody with some pretty good credentials, I think, needs to step into that role. Somebody that's got some experience, and I'm not sure that the salary or that is attractive, and then having them do passport stuff too. I mean, that's
right. I certainly see it being that they would do almost entirely agency during the agency coming period. Passports can ebb and flow because we're making the appointments. We don't have to have as many appointments during the portion where we don't have the staffing, right? As we noticed here. But yes, I would welcome discussions about increasing those numbers. I just want to make sure we're doing it within what we can do.
But kind of the good news that people that hang around in the not-for-profit sector and they've been working for not-for-profits for all their life, I mean, they tend to be unfortunately, woefully underpaid, and underappreciated. But
Right.
that's the kind of ethic we need, people with the not-for-profit mentality that know what are the potential vulnerabilities and potential strengths of these different agencies. I think it's going to be a hard position to fill.
And I think
It's
for
possible.
projects along those lines, again, I echo everything that you're saying. I have two thoughts. First, what are the qualifications? Like, what do we think somebody would need in terms of education and experience in order to be able to do this job? Is it somebody straight out of college? Is it somebody who has like years and years of experience? And the other thought is, as we typically do when we're doing this kind of work, is there a similar position at another township?
Right.
And if so, what are they paying them? What are their qualifications and experience? And because I think that would make a difference in terms of, you're going to pay a college student differently than somebody who needs years and years of experience for the job. So
Want to know, like, to be determined, leave it open?
We do have to make, so we don't have to decide this today, but this goes into the May 10th meeting, right? Right. So the hope is to have this pretty much hammered out. Otherwise, we'll be in for quite a time.
It'd be wonderful to get Brian to kind of give her, yes, some notion of what the number of hours are and kind of over the course of the year and when things get on everywhere. He's here every night dealing with budget hearings. I mean, it'd be wonderful if he could give you, Gail, these are the hours that I devote. This is the time of the year where, so people would have a sense of when they're really going to have to put hands on and when they can coast a little bit.
Certainly will be important when we're doing the hiring.
Yes.
I think we have a concept now that, and when we know November, December, October are intense, right? And that's why I was kind of encouraging the hourly, because to me it's, okay, well, I'm staying later. Great, at least I'm being compensated for it.
I think
Versus,
people that kind of control those committee meetings, which can get intense. I mean, that's the thing about Brian. He has such a command of the knowledge. We've all seen him as liaisons to the various committees.
Mhm,
And he can
absolutely.
deliver the facts, and he's got them at his fingertips to, some of our committee members can get very vocal and they will take control of the entire process
So-
without Brian sometimes
Yeah.
keeping the peace of those committees.
So just looking at some of the, kind of comparable positions, Niles has 2 food pantry clerks that both make about 40. Their administrative assistant / passports person makes 47. The food pantry coordinator at Wheeling makes 38. Yeah, not everybody has similar concepts. So like Wheeling has senior disability director as its own thing because they do that in-house, right? Versus us funding the North Shore Senior Center. So that person makes 75,000, but they're in charge of all the programming for that. No one does it like you do it.
And the thing about here, speaking as a person who actually works in this office, everything that I do is solely me. So nobody else literally does my job. But in Brian's case, we do help him with the pantry. There is overlap. But it's hard to kind of pin down because our staff is so small. You legitimately have to just jump in wherever you can. To try to create something else, because we did speak about passports. Passports at night, if you have expedited, the post office is closed.
Right.
So trying to meet the needs and kind of craft it around the stuff that we already have with the responsibilities that we have is, I get what you're saying, Elliot. It's a lot to think about.
Is there anyone else that could double on passports? Have to tax this?
We've been through that discussion a lot of times in the office. I wish that somebody else in the office did passports, especially right now.
Should we have a part-time person that just does this?
That's
There's
what-
one person carve out of one, separate
especially if it ends up being neutral in revenue. I'm not sure it would be.
Passports brings
How long does
in,
it take to do this thing?
passports brings in a lot of revenue in
Right.
in this township every year. I mean, I do on average in a year, maybe 2,000 passport appointments, and that's just by myself.
How much revenue do we bring in every year?
From
8,000.
that was just last year. The capability can get up to like $25,000.
So it could be a potentially, we don't need it to be a profit center, but it could potentially pay for the passport fees to potentially pay for the person that does the passport.
Yeah, because I also do photos. We offer expedited mailing services, which people have to pay for. So that's basically them swapping the money to give the money back to us because we're paying for it. But passports themselves, obviously, the fees go to the U.S. Department of State. To be completely transparent, I wish I did not have to do passports anymore because I have so many responsibilities, even in the admin assistant role. It is a great service to offer, but calls, inquiries, emails, people walking in, it's a big job. Passports itself really is a huge undertaking. That's like it's really a full-time job.
So hypothetically speaking, if we have one person, one part-time person, a passport person, he or she could get all the phone calls and field them, and then he or she could have a designated day or two each week, just like they do at the post office, where you come and you actually do the passport.
It would have to be long days, including before school, after school.
Do you know how many hours a week we have passport business, where we actually are dealing with customers?
Well, I deal with passports every day, but appointments are Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, pretty much all day long.
But do you think that we can accomplish all those appointments if we narrow the window? I mean, do we have to allow them 3 days, or do we give them 2 days? Or do we have to-
Well, we did 2 days, but it was previously decided by John Thomas that I wasn't doing enough passport days. So Diane kind of forced me into more passport days. The thing is also with my other responsibilities, getting the board package together, things like that, I have to designate time in the beginning of my week just so that I cannot be involved with passports. But it's almost impossible because I still have to take a phone call. I have to do several emails. It's quite a learning curve, and there are 12 modules that you have to complete in order to even get an acceptance ID. You do have to pass every single module, and that can take 8 hours because you have to keep passing little tests in between. But Gail and I have been speaking about it. Right now, I don't think that we're equipped for evenings because the U.S. Department of State is closed in the evening. So if you need help and somebody came in with a hard case, you can't get any help from the regional office. So that worries me. I don't want people to come and say, oh, hey, I have, this particular situation, because not all of it is cookie cutter. And then we can't accommodate them and then come here. I would rather avoid that.
Right, and that's why we said afternoon.
I
Right.
think the evenings also is a staffing security risk.
Right.
You would need more than one staff person present. So evenings and weekends are a potential problem just for our unique
I
situation.
like the idea of letting them, we will do passports at the Fair Township. We will continue to do them, but there's 2 days a week. And you get them done, and it's between 9 and 5. I mean, if I want a passport in Wilmette, if it's only on Saturday, right? That's the only day I can get my picture.
But
At the post office.
no,
No, Saturdays have, post offices have multiple days that you can go, but everybody is so far booked out.
So that's it.
To
Right.
even get it. And it's tons of families, it's tons of kids, and you might see sometimes 5 to 7 people at a time.
I'm not saying we should abandon passports. I'm just saying that it's something that nobody really wants to do. It should maybe be its own standalone job for somebody that's part-time, that can learn the modules, can jump through the hoops. We will help educate them and pay for their training. But let's get one person who just does passports and not try to voice this off on other people who have more important
I just see it as something that fills the void to make this person's job full or more, not full-time, because I still see it as half-time in this regard, though we can change that as well. So if you're looking also, I just wanted to point that out, this is currently designed, it's part-time, right?
Right.
So if you were looking at, I don't want you to look at the 36,000 annual salary and think that that's, full-time, it's just, double that, 72. But I do see passports as beyond our core of the mission. I think people love that we offer passports, but the main portion of the mission is, social services and helping those who are in those
So-
needs.
Go ahead.
Allocated to a virtual assistant. But
True.
maybe we put that money into somebody who does passports, and maybe Marisha doesn't need the virtual assistant if all the passport stuff is coming off her plate. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you. I don't know if that's
That's a
true.
good point.
Just,
Yeah, just the thought about passports is, I've explained this to Kate and Gail in the meetings. It literally has to be done perfectly. So if you mess it up and somebody is traveling,
She's
it
award-winning,
is,
so.
my angst about passports is that I know what I'm doing. And we need somebody who's gonna dedicate themselves to saying, hey, you don't have the right stuff, so I'm not gonna send it out, because I tell people that almost every single day, and then they'll have to come back. If the paperwork is not right, I don't submit it, because I know in a month and a half, those same people are gonna come back in. Very upset, okay? We have many passports is very multi-layered. Sometimes you have to help people through the form. Sometimes their kids are screaming. Your temperament has to be very even. Sometimes, there's dueling husbands and wives. There's divorce situations. There's lawyers involved in getting the kids' passports. Those are like little details that really have to be paid attention to. Now, would I love to give that to somebody else? Absolutely. Yes. But I just want to make sure if we're going to offer the service, that it's going to have the same integrity that I've had for the past 6.5 years.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Are other townships offering passports?
Oh, yeah,
But they have multiple people, but
right,
they also have bigger staff.
right. So like Niles, there's multiple people.
Everybody at Northfield does passports. Even the food pantry guy does passports. Yeah, I've been downtown multiple times. I have to train every 6 months. I have to train. And now I became the program manager because Diane's not here anymore. But the guy said, "Are you the program manager and the passport agent?" I said, "In this scenario, yes." So they used to have that we could go downtown every year and get like refreshers and fraud ID things. Very interesting training. But because of COVID, they stopped doing it. But there is a long computer module that you have to take, and you have to get 95% on the test to pass. And it can be quite, daunting. So, it's just something to consider, because our current staff, they're not going to do passports. We've been down this road many times, and I would prefer to not go down that road again. I like somebody who is dedicated to that position, because you're not stressed about anybody else. You're saying, when I come to work today, I'm just doing passports. And it can be very anxiety inducing. So, you just have to be prepared.
We could change that line to administrative so that it's not as specific. Or
Just because we were talking about hours,
mhm.
I was just looking at the post office in Wilmette that does passports. They do it Monday to Friday, 10 to 12 and 1 to 4. And then on Saturday, 9 to 12. So that's what the post office in Wilmette, which is the closest location to our location.
That's where I refer if we not have the availability. And we will get people who will say, well, I just live up the street. I'm going to come right now. You know, you have a room full of people. So that's what I mean by multi-layered. You know, you actually deal with a little bit of abuse when you're a passport agent because people are in a rush, people are anxious, people waited to the last minute, which is 90%. 90% of the people don't have everything that they need. So, you know, when we do cross that bridge, it's going to be very important to make sure that, you know, one, the person is in it for a little bit of a long haul if possible. And two, that they're prepared for what's to come. Obviously, I would oversee, or if that person can't be here, I would do it. But for me, there's no such thing as doing passports on a very, very part-time basis. I mean, we have to do everything based on need, and in this community, it's huge.
But when you said, Larisha, what you said, you jogged my memory now. And now that I think about it, well, that I can only go on a Saturday because I was working. And I gotta wait about 2 months to get Saturday.
Yeah.
Good point, good point. Yes,
It sounds like.
but we don't offer Saturday either.
Right.
I'm not be sure to start off in Saturday.
Right.
But I'm just wondering, I mean, are we turning away a lot of people? Are we not able to, because I'm wondering if it could be profitable enough where maybe we could comfortably train and hire somebody and end up not having to pay it and having it be a wash.
No, in a week, last week, I had 21 passports.
And what kind of revenues did that generate? What on average is this?
In fees, I think it was like 687.50 when I did deposits. So on average, it could be up to like $3,000 to $4,000 a month. Sometimes I might see 5 kids in a family. If they expedite and everything else, like the fees are huge to us because it's $35 a person.
35 a person?
If they take photos, it's $15 extra per person. And if we do the expedited fees, it's $23.75 for the whole family though, not per person.
So this is what I suggest. Let's figure out a way that if we have to raise fees a little more, let's figure out a way that we can have the passport job that we're gonna create, I think. Get it off your plate, get it not so. Let's see if we can figure out a way to create a job that is self-sustaining. Even if we have to raise fees a little bit, so we can get somebody that really wants to do passports, and that's all he or she wants to do. Even if it's only if it's a 24-hour a week or 32-hour a week job, but let's figure out a way where we can do that, where we don't have to break the bank.
Or do we have any power over setting fees, or is that set?
No, that's it.
Oh,
That's
that's
across the board. It's always going to be $35 a person. I set the fees for the photos based on kind of like what other townships do. So it's $15 per person. We didn't used to have photo services, but I told Diane that I thought it was important that we did because Phototronics left.
Yep.
So if people came here without photos, I was like, oh no, where am I going to send people? So I started taking them myself, and I know what the U.S. Department of State is looking for. So really, I prefer to take people's photos.
Can you tell us how many we did roughly in 2021?
Well, 2021, we were closed for about 18 months for passports. So in 2020, maybe I want to say about 487 passport appointments in the fiscal year.
And that was a COVID year. So since COVID is broken, the last few months we can get up to 3,000 or 4,000 a month.
Yeah, at least.
That should be able to support.
Let me ask a question. Can the township office handle the volume of clients if we would do that regularly? I know the food pantry clients coming in disrupt a lot of work. Is there a dedicated space that could be used for passports and can handle the traffic of people coming in? So I know you're pointing here, but the problem is you need dedicated. So you need to make copies.
I
You
know.
do all of these.
Well, that was
We can't
always
do
part
that
of
up here. I did that up here when we first opened the building back up.
Yeah.
Another issue with coming up here is we see 90% of the people who come in here to apply are small children. These stairs are steep, they skip, they fall. That's the reason why I started doing the downstairs in the first place. We don't have the capability up here. It's really not the best place because you're so disconnected and you will have to make copies because people never bring what they're supposed to. So it's hard to kind of do from up here. The accounting firm is using Diane's old office. So in retrospect, we're kind of running out of space on the first floor. All of that space is occupied. It's a possibility, but all of the copies would have to be made already downstairs
Design
before.
a copy of that cost all.
Right,
Yeah, I mean,
That's
yeah,
not one. That's why, I mean, that's that one.
absolutely.
It
Yeah.
scans, does
Yeah.
everything, so-
I have a little copier that I use in my office so that I don't have to keep getting up and going back and forth. Yeah, kids often play in the lobby and leave the building. You know, it's a lot of stuff going on at one time, but I mean, the logistics of it can be worked out. I always believe that you can make something happen. It's just really working it out because it can get very crazy in the lobby when food pantry people are coming or people coming to register to vote. Sometimes all of those things can be happening at one time.
But yes, I think we need, Nicole and I need to chat about whether or not a passport person is something that's feasible to be revenue neutral. Because it really is, it is, you know, the clerk's office. Yeah, and I don't think that that is something we can determine at this time, just because we've had such weird years that we can't really
And I think right
identify.
now there's such a push because people haven't been
Exactly.
So I don't think the numbers are going to be really
Accurate.
accurate.
Then we have to be able to pivot because there could be another wave of COVID and everybody's plans could be crushed. I mean, who's going to China right now, right?
Right.
Right.
But I think also, I mean, historically in the budget, there's a deputy clerk position, right? And really, like, the deputy clerk should be doing the passports and the voter registrations and the handicap placards. And really, if Larisha is done with that side of her job and wants to take on other responsibilities, having a deputy clerk assigned to these things is a real thing, and it's been in the budget before, and it was a part-time position. That's how I really think we could utilize someone.
I think that's really the best thing because that's already in place. Parking placards is not really a difficult thing. I mean, all of these things have been rolled into my job already. But I know that here it says Township Administrator, Deputy Clerk, because as the admin assistant, I've been doing all of those functions for years. So it's never been
Yeah.
broken out.
Yes, but
And when Sandy was here, she never did passports.
Right.
Well, I
So-
laughed because when I came aboard and I said, well, who does all of the deputy clerk jobs? And I realized, well, everyone said the administrative assistant has done it for years. And I said, well, what did the deputy clerk do? And everyone said, well, minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
So the reorganization without a doubt is definitely needed. We're far along with it. So deputy clerk is a part-time job. Do we think the passport could be like 24-hour-a-week portion just by itself?
It already is 5 4. It's already about 15 to 16 hours.
I
I
figured
always
somebody's
like
gotta
to
get
keep in
this.
mind, I have to do the deposits for those checks. So I don't like extending the hours so much on Friday that I can't get out here and go to the bank, which is becoming a problem as we are going through this transition because I'm running out of here because I have to make it to the bank sometime. So on Fridays, I shorten the hours because I have to allow myself to do the bank deposit. The other days it's 10 to 3. I do not advise 9 o'clock because people will be standing outside at 8:15, 8:30, and I can't even get in and get my coat off. So I give an hour. But most people start coming at about 9:45, which is fine. I just like to be able to get in my seat, check my voicemail. It's best to start at 10, even for somebody who was doing it part-time or, you know,
But easily 15 to 18 hours a week right now. with
covers
passports.
our needs.
And
Yes.
then what are the other things the deputy clerk would do?
So if you look at the first page, I do separate out those two functions.
And how many hours is voter registration and how many hours?
Not very, I mean, they're
No.
very small. I think it's just phone calls, which is the
Mhm.
other thing outside the appointments. There are a lot of phone calls that
Tons of phone calls.
Larisha really fields for that. I would say like at least 20 voicemails alone within like a 3-4 day period. So there's a lot of just answering questions that a person could be doing.
So I think we're looking at like a 24-hour position. Deputy clerk.
I looked at it before, like when I first started and trying to look at like the hourly wage and things based on what Sandy was doing. And I think this could really, could be anywhere from like 18 to 25 hours. Just based on where we're at in the budget. And, I know Gail has made a push for living wages, for hourly employee.
So many wonderful workers out there are looking for. We're not expecting them to want to do something for a time because they have children at home, or they have other activities they want to pursue, they want to exercise. There's a lot of people that are maybe in their retirement age. They're looking for a part-time position with permanency.
I just want to speak on the fact that I just really want somebody to work here who wants to work.
Yes.
That's very important. Somebody that's going to be on time. I definitely don't feel like I'm the type of person that would want to roll with the iron fist, but I'm a very efficient person. So efficiency is important, especially for what we do. So we don't want to hire somebody who's just, coming in for a little extra income because it's so much more than that. And that's so important in the hiring process.
And I'm partially the seniors and people that really only have a bunch of distractions, but they want to work.
Elliot.
I'm partial to that. I'm the youngest person in my office.
Well, I am too. And the thing is
Your
about
friendly neighborhood employment discrimination attorney.
But I really,
the thing is that we also don't want somebody who's retirement age who are going to lose in a short period of time.
yeah,
I think we should
seniors
just get
are
the
there
most, the most qualified individual.
Yeah.
I know, I didn't want to get into passport.
I had another question. Well, but I appreciate everything. Rich, an action, but are we back to the perhaps to the back when we started, which is discussion about time, job responsibility?
Yes, I'd like
to do anything about it.
So his job would stay the same this year, other than he is helping to transition someone.
Not current, but.
Oh, sorry. Okay, for the community partnerships coordinator. Okay.
An important position. If we're looking for a salary, I would say commensurate with experience.
I
really.
can't put that in the budget though.
So you've got 36,000 in the budget.
What did I do?
I just don't think that.
So I created this budget off of this combined document at the end. What do we have here? Oh my God. Community partnerships coordinator would be this year 18,000, next year 37,000. That's the annual. We can increase that. Now, just knowing, normally your best practices is obviously post truth and salary. You don't want people coming in and being like, oh, you were really going to pay me that, right?
But I think it starts, you've got to tell the person what the hours are going to be and when the hours are going to be.
Absolutely.
So I think once we know what the hours are, working with Brian, these are the months, these are the hours, and then these are the months, and these are the hours and the evening hours. Once we have that in front of us, then I think we can probably come up with a salary. It's just so hard to take a stab at a
So
salary.
this is not written in stone. This is written in PDF. We can always amend a budget. We have to go through the same process that we're doing now. We have to post it, give 30 days. So it can be done. So I wouldn't be, if we find that this is not working and we have to amend, we have to amend.
I mean, would we be actually posting that rate of $70.53 an hour?
Yes.
So you're telling somebody that you're going to be responsible for a system in which that culminates in an award of $1.6 million a year to 36 different agencies, and you're getting $17.52 an hour to do it.
propose a different number. What do you think? And that's a good, it's a question right now, especially with the job market the way it is. And maybe we do have to offer additional to get someone who's qualified.
I think that would be better. Yes, we don't know how many.
I tend to agree with that about quoting. Salary.
It's
But
a
is this
part-time job, yes. it's a
But for a
part-time
part-time job,
yes.
Well,
Well,
I
our
just wanna
neighbors
say
are
that
using
when I
that for-
started here, my salary was only $45,000.
Right.
So, and that's full.
for a
time.
full-time job.
I'm resigning and applying.
Right.
I know that I'm making the lead board.
Right. I mean, just looking at our neighbors, I just think that would be out of line. Yeah, and then we would change the role. Yeah. Oh, well, then, oh, sorry. No, sorry.
that
You're right.
person
No.
is just doing
This
agency.
person stays just doing agency. Then we have a community services administrator. That role becomes, that's currently Brian, right? That role is going to become a 3-part role. So community partnerships coordinator, food pantry coordinator, and restorative justice coordinator.
I feel very uncomfortable.
3
comparing
roles.
Jobs, I mean, the amount of acumen required to deal with 30 some odd different agencies, and 3 different committees, and all the nuances of not-for-profits. I mean, it took Brian decades to get up to where he's at now. I mean, it's different than the other jobs that people are doing around here. It's $1.6 million of the taxpayer money. That's all I'm saying. But I don't want to compare jobs and compare salaries because I don't think it's appropriate.
We can certainly revise. This is all new. I just don't see it as a full-time job.
I agree with that.
And that would be, telling somebody that it's, $100,000 job. I was thinking closer to 25, based on this conversation. And that job market is, and I would be nervous to not find somebody. who's
Well,
even-
how can we do that? Will we do an hours cap?
We can discuss. I don't think we're gonna go over 40. Is that what your question is?
Well, yeah.
During the
because-
time period?
So.
I think we pay what we need to pay to get the job done.
Some weeks will be 50, 60 hours when we're doing
Right.
hearings and everybody's here late at night. What about qualifications too? What are you looking for?
Mhm. And we've certainly put together a job posting the same way we did with Julie's job, and the same thing we did with the financial job. I think a college degree or the equivalent. I tend not to fault people for not going through a traditional method of education. So
But what about like something like 5 or 10 years working in the not-for-profit sector?
I think that's a positive. I don't like putting things as requirements, because I do think it can box people out. The more experience, the better. I don't know who we'll get. And, from going through the hiring for the communications, I had fabulous people on all parts of the spectrum of experiences for different reasons. So they will see the job description posted on LinkedIn or wherever. No, but it is considered best practices to put the salary at least range. Yes, now it is. Yeah. And actually, I believe it was New York that just passed that it's required. So that's now the thing. Yeah.
Consult with Brian in terms of maybe putting the onus on him to help craft or to craft the job.
Oh, absolutely. He'll be heavily involved in that. Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Do we have to think of tonight you want us to come over?
At least for our input state, we will be voting on the final, on the final budget at the May 10th, right? That's what it's noticed for. And in order to make a decision about whether or not it makes sense, we have to know what our inputs are. So what I'm hearing though is that a proposed hourly of 25 would be more in line, I think, with the job market and the responsibility. I think that makes perfect sense to me. And I'll extrapolate that out to revise what our the salary line item on this line item document. Are there any other, yeah. Right. Gusto is an online HR platform. And it's an app essentially. It tracks. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because normally those functions would have been done by an HR person. Maybe it would be a third party that would track like PTO. You'd be able to get your pay stub, things like that you would normally have a person do if you had a big organization. Right. Yes, exactly. And moving that function out of the administrative function, people would be able to put in their PTO into
It's
the
something that in the past Diane was responsible for. So in the context of taking that out of the administrative bucket, it's just an effort to put it somewhere else so that we can monetize exactly that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, we liked Gusto. We just played with some of the different apps. Yeah. There's an app for that. Mm-hmm.
The $25 an hour for the job, are we putting half?
Oh yeah, I mean we have a budget, right? Yes. So yes, this person will put in timesheets, obviously, and that's another reason why we need that software is be able to actually approve these things. But I was not approving timesheets. That was an HR function, and I have not seen the timesheets.
But just point of reference, somebody made $25 an hour and works 20 hours a week, that's $1,000. That's $52,000 a year.
Right.
So
it's yeah, no, that's reasonable. Mm-hmm.
Where does performance review?
Right. Performance.
Creation of them.
Mm-hmm. That would be administrator. Obviously with myself, yeah.
We've never had performance reviews here.
Since you've been here. And that it is in our manual, but that was a requirement and did not occur. I do have some really old ones. We do have some staff who've been here a long time, but so it did happen at some point when the manual was written. And it was a long time ago. Yeah.
Do we help in coming up with what the review should look like based on those up-to-date practices? I know things have changed.
Oh yeah, we're not going to just use the old form from 2007. No.
Is that just something that we're going to develop on our own and figure out how to do?
There are plenty of resources out there, thankfully. Yeah.
Is it worth allocating any money in the budget to aid Larisha in that turnover as she is taking on more responsibilities with limited background information? Specifically, I'm thinking about, do we do a short-term contract or, pay, an HR company to help us come up with the templates for, what should be in a personnel file, what an annual review should look like, so that we are setting Larisha and indeed the whole township up, the township office up for success, rather than expecting her to make something out of nothing.
We do have a line item for contract hires as needed. We do have somebody in the community who has offered to help promote it. So that is much more. Yes, that I've been in touch.
Great, thank you.
It's like digitization.
Yeah,
Could you elaborate on that?
sure. But is there any other discussion on the reorganization document?
Part of it is under the other.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I guess it is. I kind of put that there to be like, these are all the people who work here. But yes, so digitization, we have not entered into a contract, but we had gotten a quote, so I put that there. You want to, I mean, and I know Nicole has given you a little bit of background over the couple weeks ago, but go ahead.
We need to as well as the organization. It goes back to the conversation we had previously about how there's piles of paperwork everywhere, and we need to come up. So this contract would develop a system of like just even like a system of name keeping, and also figure out what we need to save and what we don't need to save. Help us put in a policy for what our records retention policy is, and then accumulate all the documents and make sure they're accessible, and then have them in such a format that we can easily get them on the website for public as well. And it encompasses, I mean, almost all of our files that are in the office.
So we have other resources we're also exploring. I know there's a government agency that'll come out and kind of help us out. We may need additional help, just given the volume. So yes. Anything else on that?
It's almost kind of like a legacy jobs where they're organizing it, they're scanning it,
Right.
they're getting it so we can do it.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing that, you know, the basement's filled with boxes.
There could be good stuff down there.
There's just random stuff and like just random places, right?
Yeah.
It's like always a surprise.
We found sign-in cards for like the original town meetings, like 600. So, yeah.
Historical societies.
Right, but
But it's mixed
and
with
some of
both.
that would have already been digitized under Jerome, because remember he had that he was really excited about that. And so it's kind of a matter of, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we just need to figure out what's been done. If you go in the library, we have actual ledgers, handwritten they have amazing handwriting in the 1900s. But it's paper and it costs extra because they can't feed it through a scanner, right? So if those have already been done, that's great. Cool. So that does lead us, oh, sorry, if there are no other additional changes to this document, I would propose that we adopt the reorganization with the knowledge that we will assess whether a separate passport person is feasible and recommended. Is there such a motion?
Maybe second passport person. I thought we were leaning towards including that under the deputy.
Oh, having it in,
Yeah, we didn't have that in here.
we don't at this time, right?
The deputy clerk function is under me right now in this reorganization.
You are dramatically overtasked. We've got to get you to focus on things.
Absolutely, but at this time,
We're kind of stuck.
I hear you.
yeah. Yes, but I'm not saying that we're not always evaluating and reevaluating, right?
The funding could be here under the virtual assistant.
Absolutely,
So, I mean, that's a possibility.
right, absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want a motion to approve
The change structure,
with the candidates in mind? I would-
Exactly.
So moved.
is there a second? And I'm changing virtual assistant to simply administrative assistant. And it can be virtual or in person as needed. 25 per hour. Cross off the training. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? The motion carries. As a part of that, I would like to at least have something on the record, having a motion declaring a emergency between April 18th and this evening for contracting purposes. Is there a second? I'm not positive either. This is what he's trying to get me to do. This is what he told me to say. Essentially,
When Diane.
I don't think it, when Diane left, so we needed to get someone in. Yeah.
It gives you a little extra power.
So for that last week,
Yes,
um,
I think it's well taken, and I so.
Second.
any discussion to declare that an emergency between
April 18th and April 6th.
For contract.
Authorization. Yeah.
Authorization.
Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. Let's do voice because it seems important. I mean, not voice, call a roll. Yeah. Yes.
Trustee Casal McCown.
Yes.
Trustee Robbins.
Yes.
Trustee Marshall. Trustee Rubin. Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Should be a seems important caveat, right? Okay. So we do, like I said, the government accounting is in place. We do have the ability to terminate with 30 days written notice. So far, I've been extremely happy with his jumping in and really deep delving. That didn't, the fees include that original setup. So that's what we're doing. We're setting up QuickBooks. We're setting in and doing the transition and training. So certainly, I'm not sure he contemplated all the complications of transitioning, but there was transition meant to occur. And I had hoped it'd be a little bit less exciting.
It might be a
Yes, we obviously didn't know we were going to, and it was really glad that we could come on short notice, but we didn't know that he was going to attend. So excuse me. But yeah, going forward, he will be available to attend. I do think that it's acceptable to attend via Zoom unless anyone disagrees. He is far away.
Yeah, he is.
All right, thank you. All right, line item budget, and I apologize that it is now 10 o'clock, almost. Yes, you are absolutely right. But it is part of the line item. So why don't we go straight to that because you don't have to say. Yes, so we did talk about this a bit at the last big meeting. So I did want to, this is not revised after that meeting because we didn't, I know, Diane, yeah. Yep. So I kind of gave a guesstimate of where that was going to end up. Okay. By the May 10th. Okay. Where am I looking here? To find the right page. There it is. Okay, page 3. So I put down an estimate of 93. Why don't we just, for my sanity, we'll just put a placeholder of 100. And then once we get those, hoping that we get those numbers in, we can always spend less. So, right? But I don't think we're going to be way off target on that number. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Cabanargi? Oh, okay. James. James. Yes.
Okay, all right. Don't have nothing else.
Okay. Great. So the other, well, that's, any questions on the assessor budget? Okay. All right. So I tried to put notes where I made changes. The blue are things that we have already passed and theoretically should not have to reconsider. So that's mostly our levy and our agency allocations. So step one was summer camp. I proposed a slight increase, and please take a look to have your final line item budget available so you can see where we were at the end of the year. I don't think they're going to match up exactly, but they might. That'd be great. So I was proposing a modest increase because we were close to the max last year, and with the increase in the financial aid threshold, I'm hoping we can spend it. That would be the 75 from 61. Any objections or discussion? Seeing none.
I'm sorry, I tried to print the notes, but no matter how I turned the paper, landscape or portrait.
Well, hopefully I'll know what I was talking about. In theory, I'll show you how to do
Yeah, I'm trying to turn it the other way.
no worries. Okay, so dial a ride. I was going to keep that steady because of the changes. So we can just see how that turns out once we allow food pantry to use it. Any objections to that change? Or not change, keeping that the same despite real underutilization. So that was at 17%. Okay, great. Mobility access, we kind of just have always just left $1,000 there, just in case we will be able to use it. So
It's still
yeah,
$6 per ride. So,
exactly.
yeah.
All right, retirement funds, I would decrease that since we aren't using it. We had 0% of use. And this was really just a fund just in case we were underfunding our pensions. And we determined that we weren't. So we had a slight scare at one point and we were nervous.
That's significant. We're going down to 100.
Right, but we used none of it. Yeah. Yes. I have the PDFs downstairs. I got into IMRF. So that was exciting. You're right. No, but this is not for our, we're funded. This was in order to increase the funding. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A perceived short.
Perceived shortfall. Yeah, but it essentially was 0 because we used 0. So I'm still having 50 in a rainy day, just in case we have another scare. Yeah. Any other discussion on that? Because I am nervous, because that's what risk aversion is. Community support grants, there have been discussion about increasing that so that we would be closer to 1,500 level per support grant. So this is a proposed increase to allow for that. Doing the math, so we had 226 community support grants last year. But the year before we had 235. So I done the math off that larger number just to see, because I assume we'll have somewhere in between. If we kept it at the current rate or the rate that we've had the last few years, we would need $282,000 at 1,200. To increase it to 1,500, we need 352,000, and that's assuming we had 235 applicants. Again, we can always change this a little bit, like we have often done, and we don't have to determine the amount of the grant at this time. We always kind of see what the interest was, but I do think we should allocate additional funds for that line item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. No, I'm saying we're not at this time. We're including the number here in the line item of 340,000. And then hopefully, if we have, and if we have somewhere between the 235 tops to the 226, we'll be in great shape to be able to increase that number. Okay. All right, we don't have to talk about Oakton because we did that. New program funds. This is always just kind of a just in case we think of something that's really smart number. We used to call it PACS, projects of township significance. To be cute, we're just going to call it new program funds. So this would be a slight increase just to allow for flexibility. We had been at 26. Yes, but that was we had really looked at all of PATS was all of that before. So like that 150 that didn't exist 3 years ago, right? We moved from the new program funds that 150.
Huh?
So we had essentially we had about 150 in new program funds maybe 3 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. It was a much more significant number. And when we were nervous about the retirement fund issue, we moved it out into a separate line item. But yeah, we've had some interesting projects in the past, and I just like to have a little, things happen. We were able to use that, we used new program funds during COVID for Meals on Wheels and for those gift cards to students who didn't have school lunch. So just in case. Yep. Any discussion on increasing new program funds to 50 from last year, which essentially is kind of renewing it. All right, great. It wasn't used. Yeah. We moved around some of that money. Yeah. When we did the line item transfer. So it really wasn't, yeah. Okay. That,
I guess one thing that comes to mind is at 26, I mean, when we did the Oakton thing, did we think about taking it from the program?
we didn't have to because we're putting it on this budget.
Okay. But
So like theoretically, you could sure have had, new program funds, 70,000, but that wouldn't really help people looking at our budget to know what we're spending.
But if somebody comes during the new budget, if someone comes during the new budget, like Oakton gave to us, and said, here, we got a new program,
Right.
then we would use some of that 50,000.
Right, the quintessential example was Texas Tech, right?
Yes.
Was it 2 years ago, or yeah, it was the record North Shore came, right? So after the funding cycle, seeking new program funds. Okay, no change. Sponsored meetings, really the meeting expenses itself, I just revised to be closer to what we were spending. Yeah, there's small changes other than the annual town meeting. And so I was hoping to have the numbers from the annual town meeting. Because we had because you would, certainly assume that a virtual meeting would be cost less.
A wonderful venue and well attended. We are curious what the structure.
Yeah, he's just pulling it up. No worries, we got it. Yeah, absolutely. We're at the point where my phone has gone into sleep. It's a sleep mode. Sleep well.
The author of that play is likely the person that wrote it.
No, we got a separate point from that.
Oh, separate.
So the total cost for the venue was $375.
What a good bill.
It was
Well
2.5
done.
hours, and they gave us the government nonprofit rate, and they were just the nicest
Nice.
to work for. nice to showcase a Wilmette place and support local businesses. So the total meeting cost all in all was $1,109.20.
Well
I think there
done.
should be a little blurb about that in our next publication. I mean, that's the,
Yes.
it wasn't, somebody said something about $5,000 or $10,000.
Well, I think it's budgeted at 6,500, and that's why I want these numbers to be a little closer to what we actually spent, because people will see this. Right. I mean, how many people are looking at the actual to, I remember having that discussion, 5 years ago when we ran.
The other thing I would say is that the women's club was keeping track of our attendance too, and I was as well, and we were close to 90 people. And we could have never supported that kind of crowd here, but it's a public meeting, so we have to be open to the public. So, I don't know if we'll be able to get such a great rate next year. And I do think it's important to spread ourselves out around the township. So I think, we probably need to be more like closer to 1,800 or even 2,000, because the women's club gave us a deal. Right.
But when you approach folks like in Glenmore, when that, you say,
Yeah.
this is what we spent, look at the women's club.
Yeah.
This is how many people, this is what we can afford.
Yes, and they'll
Yeah.
keep it in line if they want our business.
Yeah.
But very well budgeted, well done.
Absolutely.
This is
Um,
our first thing.
I didn't even get a cookie. But I do love Lawrence Seed. Fabulous local business. So I am proposing to bring that down to 3,000 to be more in line with actual spending. Any discussion? Okay. And any discussion on any of the other meeting expenses? Okay. Printing and publishing. Thanks to Julie, we have done a fabulous job on decreasing costs and increasing quality. So thank you, Julie. So I'm proposing a $40,000 line item for that. We were only at 52% of our budget at 55. So I'm still giving some wiggle room here. But I think as we, I think we can certainly call that responsible. Any discussion? Yes, Julie.
We'll need to do some additional signage
Mhm.
moving forward, replacing some of the old ones. And then moving with the wellness center, we can do some flashy things.
Absolutely,
But
right.
definitely within that.
Great. Yes. And we'll continue my investment in reusable sign. Yay.
Of course.
Thank you. And that when you see later a new claim in your claims document, that's Stevens Group, that was our new printer. So if you're like, I don't recognize that one. Any discussion on printing and publishing? Similarly, postage, we were way below our allocated 30,000. We obviously have gone down to 3 mailings. Right,
And no annual town meeting.
right. So a substantial, because we put the meeting invitation on the annual meeting. So that this used to be a separate postcard, if you recall. So, yay for efficiency. Maybe 2-3 years. Yeah. Yeah, it was relatively recent, but not the first year, no. It is, yes. I believe we did. So if we were at, our actual was at 28. Wait, did I mess this up? No, our actual was at 11,874. So I think we're giving us, because yes, postage is going up. We still have that really great rate that I believe is stuck, which is why we have Courier Nonprofit. The whole thing is set up for postage. So
You mentioned the Stevens online. I was also wondering about Civic Plus.
yes,
What is Civic Plus?
that's the website.
Okay, and that was, we probably made some major improvements.
And we would have had our charge for the webmaster.
Okay. So that all pretty
Yeah.
much-
Yes. What was nice about that is that we did a trial run. We did 3 months trial run with the webmaster. And once we figured out we were using it properly, we went in with the full contract. So that's good. that was a good way to do it, I think. But yes, and little by little, we're improving the website. Hopefully, we'll- still there. Julie still picks up the phone. So, but join me in, oh, I found a link that's broken, or this, we can improve the copy on X. Because sometimes there's a lot of pages, we just need to all have eyes on it. Okay. And I was saying to Julie, our theme for the website is just anticipating what the public wants. Right. These next three, I wasn't changing, though we did underuse legal as far to the budget, not saying we underused legal. Contract hire, though, I did increase, doubled that. They would also, so this would be allowing some administrative assistance. I'm thinking now, based on our conversation, we might want to increase that number even further. Because I was hoping in that line item was also including Julia in her temporary capacity in social work. So that for the contract hire line, so I'm thinking we have to increase that to 30 just to be safe. We do have that, that's a whole month. Okay. Any other discussion? Outreach events. We had a communications line item. Now that we have communications in-house, that's now a salary item, but we still want to do some outreach activities. So I put $10,000 for outreach events. This will include our wellness fair as well as the shred events and other programming. Julie, sound fair? The shred events are the shred trucks about under 1,000 each. Like 750. Yeah. Right.
Did we get two this time or just
That-
one?
I'm hoping one. I'd rather fill it. We'll discuss, but yeah, if you build it, they will come. It is during soccer this time. 2-hour event is during soccer, so people can drop off their kid. Is it?
I'm very much gonna try to.
Wait, I did it 8:30 to 11:30. Is that wrong?
Hold on, I'm looking at the 8:30, 11:30 on the annual report. All right, then yeah, two, we can get to.
I'm going to 8:30 to 10:30 if I can.
My calendar likes to change. Oh, yours is not the same. Okay, it was highlighted. All right, so that should cover our reach. I don't know if we'll use it all, but I think, it's obviously we provide some really cool events. Any discussion on outreach? Right. Oh, yeah, and power of attorney. Wellness. So we shouldn't have much cost on power of attorney. We use pro bono attorneys for that. The only thing would be if we needed a larger space and needed to rent a space, but yeah. Virtual webmaster, that is the contract with Civic Plus. So that's we have 5 hours a month for our more complicated web issues. Any questions about that? Great. Web maintenance, again, I decreased it for actual unit usage. We were at 10,000 last year. So I figure 15 should give us good room. Similarly with office equipment and contracts, we underused significantly. We were at 10,000, so 15 for that as well. Any changes on those two? Great. HR services was the payroll app. I was thinking 2,000. I'm a little concerned that given our need in getting payroll set up, that we may need to use a local person And therefore, I think we need to increase that line to 5,000 rather than Gusto. But, so there's the person the accountant had recommended, essentially.
Right now, people are giving me their time off requests, and I'm just trying to document them the best way that I can, obviously for auditing purposes. But I was never in charge of that function, so I'm just trying to follow suit. But we do have such an issue with proper tracking of vacation, the way that it was done. So I do feel like we need some significant improvement in that area.
And James Howard talks about somebody by the name of Howard Simon.
Exactly. That's what the 5,000 would be.
And he kind of tells you each week, these are the checks you have to write.
Well, so the accountant is doing all the checks. He writes the checks.
But
So,
Howard determines.
He does the
payroll.
payroll. Yeah, yeah. And he has an app too. It's just a little less flashy, but more personal, obviously. Right. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we have to just, we have not ordered either. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Help to put a system in place and then we go with it, or this person is.
We would,
ongoing help for this person?
I think we would try it for this year.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my thought. Yeah. And
Because right now, approvals and vacation time is
right,
very.
there's a lot of confusion. There's a
Yeah.
lot of,
If somebody is going to have to regulate that, I have no issue with taking the time off request because they're going to come to me anyway. But just to relay the information according to what our accrual rules are for township and how many years you've been working here. Because I personally did not take vacation over COVID, but I'm still so confused about my vacation time.
yeah,
So that's a big concern of the employees is obviously seeing how much time they have and things like that. I think that system is very necessary. We need an HR that's separate.
Yeah.
Judging based off of what we're currently going through, those two entities need to be separated.
What I thought also was, I took note of the fact that in Jeannie's, she's gonna have a little time off her knee, that there was an approved medical absence. So we had a situation that it was just open-ended, right? To contrast with Jeannie's.
right.
very
But there is, fairness concerns. Because we want the policies to be implemented for policy.
fairly-
Exactly. Yep. So any objections to moving that item to 5,000 to permit to use a local contractor?
I like that idea too, because then I can give my time.
Yeah.
Like right now, I have my personnel file and everybody else's personnel files, but I want my personnel file to be separate.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to give my time scale so that we can get on the right path.
Exactly. The office technology audit, I had put down just as a $10,000 placeholder. I do not know how much this will cost. Also, part of James Howard's role is he's going through some of these processes and may cover some of what we needed, but don't have to spend it. Any thoughts on that? You think so?
Is that the digitizing?
No, digitizing separate.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I need a laptop.
We've been paying some significant amounts of money to HTML.
It's absolutely
for
true.
equipment. It's been up there. I personally don't feel like we need to order that equipment through HTML. They're gonna charge us an upcharge.
True.
I literally can order a computer.
It sounded like when I talked to HTML about it though, that then they would charge us to put the software that we would need on, so that actually and they're like, well, you just need to talk to Diane.
Right.
So it was interesting, I think, because there are vendor that put some of the things on the computer that we will need, and they have a licensing for some of our products that we use. Right, because I thought the same thing, like, oh my gosh, I can get a laptop for like $800 or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's more issues than it seemed at first, and I can,
I just ordered one for the assessor's office a couple months ago, and HTML was right in line if I go on, if I popped over to Best Buy and bought it myself. It was $8.50. So there's no upcharge to us now, to load perhaps, but that was, and it's in line with everything else in our office, and that we've got the extended service warranty and whatever other features are on the office system on that too. So there's something to be said for going through them as long as they are not uploading on us.
Right. Right, so looking at the IT support line item, so we, and like Lisa mentioned earlier, we have reached out to them to kind of go over what our current contract is, make sure we're using it properly, and to its full extent. So there is certainly a possibility that some of that, the 25 that we currently pay them, really should go to a different, an expert on these systems. But we're assessing those contracts. We just haven't been able to, but we're scheduling an appointment with them. Like I said, these are written in PDF, not in stone. So if we do find that that's not accurate, we can deal with it. You'll see that I meant to put in a number for strategic planning, and I didn't. What do we want to put in there? You've taken a look at that, Julie.
Talked about board source, the board
Right.
source, and decided that probably that wasn't needed.
Okay.
Um,
We think we can do it internal at this point.
I think for this first year, I
Okay.
think it's really a preliminary year.
Mhm.
Did you have any thoughts on that?
And for those of you in these discussions, we were going to use also the wellness fair as part of that. So as you know, people can do our survey or can do a focus group during that program. So essentially, it's what do you think what are the most important functions of township government? You know, it's really an assessment of what our role is going forward and what it should be. A lot of other local governments are doing that right now. So we don't have to reinvent wheels. Like we can borrow questions.
It's a very
Yeah.
costly, right? It can be $20,000 to $40,000 what some other townships are spending.
Right.
I think we discussed that this first year would be setting
Yeah,
it up.
exactly. So we'll leave that out then. Digitization again. This is what we've currently been quoted. I'm not saying we're definitely approving it. But I wanted to make sure we had that ability. Any discussion on that? Okay. Accountants, 32,000 for government accounting. You have their document. Any discussion on that? Come say hi, meet them in person. Great. Using subscriptions, we didn't use the whole thing, and I had suggested a decrease there, more in line. We spent about $5,000 last year, 5,700. So proposing to bring that down from the 10,000. Any discussions on that? And that's like our toy, talk, all of your letters. And then right now we actually have a couple of, I think some Jan, do you have any assessor groups that are on that line item? Any assessor groups that are on that? Okay. Well, it probably hadn't at the time. Right. So here, yeah, if you look at it, it says Cook County Assessors Association, Illinois Assessors Association, Township Officials, Illinois. Yep. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. So I think that, that small amount will look less when we're done. And that'll probably be an end of year kind of transfer to see what the assessor's office spent, right? Okay. Any discussion on that? Office supplies, gave you some wiggle room. but we can always reduce paper. All right, officials, staff expenses. I decreased decreased expenses, but I do want to note that we probably will have some expenses going forward, especially if anybody wants to go to the Township Officials of Illinois Conference. I'll channel my Alan Goldberg, who always encouraged us to go because he was a firm believer in the November conference. That at least once in a term, you should make it. It's really, it's interesting to see how the other townships do things. So there are a lot of differences that you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. So I want to make sure we had some room in there. Any discussion on expenses? Some of these good ideas come from those conferences. All right, so we moved the assessor's office number to 100,000. If we have a more accurate number by May 10th, we'll fix that for you. Building maintenance, decreased that to 75 from 90. We used 50% last time. And I think, there's a lot of questions right now about some of the charges. So this gives good wiggle room, but we're trying to kind of suss out what we were paying for.
We offer an elevator inspection again, and their rate is going up. I was looking through some of their paperwork today. We've had some building maintenance in the last week. When the heating people come out, there's 3 separate heating units in this building, so sometimes that can be very costly, but we did just recently have that repaired. Anything could go wrong with the elevator at any time, so that kind of fluctuates. So that is a good amount. We do have to have people in, but Rebuilding Together does do the painting, and that's very gracious of them. So at least we don't have to pay for a painter, well, essentially. We don't have a person who does like carpenter functions. There was some overlapping of certain vendors just doing patch repair stuff around here. So it's good that Rebuilding Together could do it so that I didn't have to find a painter because it would have cost us an arm and a leg just for that small job.
I think we also got good value as a result of the remediation of the fire and the repairs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I think we're in pretty good shape, at least in the most, the basic area where we were worried about things like.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Any additional discussion on building maintenance, repairs, and improvements? Okay. No change in insurance and utilities. So those were at 75%, but just in case. Telephone, we are saving a good amount now. So I proposed a decrease to 25,000. We were at 20 last year. Our budget was 36,000 last year. Yeah, our actual was. Do we think that I'm undervaluing that? And my only worry is, were we paying that every month, no matter what?
Well,
a
our
subscription?
phone right now is through HTML.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure. He didn't send me the other contracts that were involved with them. So we're going to have to talk that through with him. Because at this point, I think that our fees are rolled into those payments that we pay them on the township credit card. And I don't know how that's broken down.
Got it.
Because they send us an invoice, but I still have to figure out how to get into their portal to kind of look at how they break it down.
Okay. What do you mean?
Well, a lot of people are moving toward going to their computer.
True. Ours is separate, yes. So this is a whole new system that was implemented.
Over the time that Diane was gone.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
It was
A year ago.
implemented right after the fire, right after
Yeah.
the repairs happened for the fire.
Right. So certainly I would be interested in voice over internet if that's what you're thinking. That's what I use for my legal practice and seems to work out fine. Obviously, if you don't have internet, you have problems. But we have good internet for anybody who needs. Well, it certainly can. Absolutely.
Tell us again, if we do exceed the budget on one or two of these items, it's not the end of the world.
Right. So if it's not more than 10%, we can just move it. But otherwise, we can do an amended budget process simply by doing the same notice and approval process.
If we go over.
Right. So a little more cumbersome, involves truly getting to know the libraries again. Now they're buddies. So now you have friends. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so salaries. Yeah, so I will recalculate based on the additional the $25. So I'll have a different number for that. I'll update that and hopefully can get these updated personnel numbers as well, but they should be. Right. Well, remember, we moved some to contract. Right. So some of it's staff, some of it's contract issues. Yes, that I will double check my math. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I did move some, I moved additional roles to GA as well. That's a good point to point out. But yes, I will double check my math because you're right, that is
When you look
different.
at the projections on your nuclear position, the last 2 pages, I don't think it was as big of a savings as you think. So those
Right.
last 2 pages-
So if you total it up between the GA fund salaries and the town fund salaries, it should end up being more. But I was able to move pantry administration to GA and increase the amount we were giving for Jean's role to GA because based on the percentage of how much she uses from that fund. Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
don't, I think it needs to be said that if our overall budget for salaries increases modestly, but people are doing what they should be doing and they're happy and we have a copacetic, well-functioning office, I don't have a problem, Gail, if overall our salaries go up a little bit, but we're getting more value and we're not overtaxing people and neglecting things.
Of course.
So there doesn't necessarily have to be a net reduction if we've got the right people in place to make this a more wonderful operation.
Right. And I'll certainly do my real recalculations on that. So I'm not asking for, in stone, because I do have to fix those inputs. No change suggested to elected official compensation. For those of you who are new, elected official compensation needs to be set at least, I can't remember the amount of days, but we have to give enough notice that someone running for the office knows how much they would be paid, essentially. So you can't just change it right before you leave office. It has to be changed before the election. But no, I'm not suggesting any change. Any discussion? I wonder how long we've had that those same numbers. No one will ever take them.
I would just go to the salary go down.
Right. Yeah. So as you noted, as I said, I didn't recalculate because I'm thankfully have an accountant now. But yes.
Everybody's salaries stayed the same with the exception of.
So Brian and Jean's, theirs would go up by the previously, the previous adopted raise The new roles include raises. So the minute Larisha was proposing a raise, I was also proposing a raise for Julie to commensurate with the increased role for both of them. So if there's anything else on there. Yeah. Good point. So there, yeah, everyone gets a raise, but yeah, certainly depends on the job description. As well. And GA, blue again, the blue is the tax ordinance. So even though, you know, we don't really levy anything, they still give us money. I don't know what the town fund support projects is and never got an explanation. So I don't really know what to do about that. Right. So if I look at last year, I think we did we not spend it? We didn't spend it. So we were at 0 last year for that. You know, some of these we have to keep even though we use them for 0 because it's about catastrophic events. So outpatient services, access to care, for instance. But I just have no idea what that is. So is a plug figure, you think? Is it a plug figure we need? Not going to make a huge difference, obviously, in here, but. Right. Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, considering that we're talking to us right now,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't know, leave it be.
Yes.
So that, you know, we at least have the wiggle room of the year to figure out.
Right.
And then, you know, this time next year, we can hopefully be better informed.
Okay. Let's go ahead. We'll leave that there. Food pantry, I was going to leave it the way it was, even though I do hope that we will get some savings this year. We were spending much more, I think, than we needed to, because we were using local grocers, which is great, supporting local business, but you know, our job is to maximize the tax dollar to serve the most people. So, you know, I still think we'll use some of those local businesses for fruits and vegetables, for instance. But we, you know, being able to have visual GA allows us to join the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which gives us greater savings. And also now that we finally, now that we finally got a Costco membership, but sadly that individual canceled the Costco membership on her out.
And I can't
But we need a new
really
credit
think
card
about
to do that. So thank you for signing the BMO resolution.
And also we spend quite a bit of money on blue bags.
Yes.
Because we get those blue bags away and they are
Reusable
very
bags.
expensive.
Yeah.
So once people do start shopping again,
Mhm.
which, you know, we hope will be happening this summer, those people will have those dedicated 2 bags every time that they come. We won't be spending so much money on the bags.
Right,
And because of COVID, we are not really encouraging people to bring bags.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
obviously for that purpose, but once people start shopping again, it will reduce the cost significantly. We're not spending for people to take all of that stuff out of the building.
Yep. So, and we do anticipate Larisha and I both see the shopping as important to clients' autonomy and dignity. So in line with virtual GA's rollout would be return of shopping. So, and as you all know, we're still wearing masks to ensure our own safety. And
We're having a few issues with the wearing masks, but if people want to shop, they're definitely going to have to wear a mask.
exactly.
When people do come into the lobby without a mask, I do tell them that they have to wear one. They definitely have to wear one in my office for a passport. It's up to everybody else's discretion, which is what Gail says. If you're seeing clients, like, if you want, you know, them to wear a mask, and you wear a mask.
In your personal office, yeah.
In your personal office, but in the lobby area, we are encouraging masks, and those signs are on the door. But getting back to shopping, it has been well over 2 years since we obviously have been going through the COVID protocol. So we can get back to some kind of normalcy.
Absolutely. And that will free up some of your time as well.
Yeah.
Very exciting times. Yeah. Is there any other old business? Seeing none, approval of claims, trustee Moser.
First, 2022.
Is there a motion? Sorry, you moved. Is there a second? All those, any discussion? Seeing none. All the, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Yes.
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 Trustee Mosier.
Yes.
Trustee Reba.
Yes.
I'm gonna start this one going this way. Is there a second? That was the motion, I assume. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes,
Yes,
I believe there's a typo.
please.
About third of the way down, it's 151717 for Coley elevator. I believe that should be 70 because there's no check 1570. It's also later voided about 2/3 of the way down with the same typo.
Okay, one second.
Yeah,
I should know.
this was copied out of Diane's Sage software from what I could put together based off of how I always put the plans together.
Right.
So I will speak with James from the accounting firm about it because I'm not sure what that's that way.
Yeah.
So is it a typo or was it not
But
sent
it's got
out?
the same, it's got the date as if it's 1570.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. You're right. That's weird. Okay, so.
And then it's voided as 1517 as well. So
Mhm.
And that's the same as on the cash disbursements journal.
Yeah,
Good catch.
good catch. Thank you.
Um,
Okay.
So just to let everybody know, this look a little bit different when we switched to QuickBooks because I did copy this information out of Sage. The
Mhm.
top parts will obviously be the same, but I'm just not sure what their protocol is.
Right. So I went ahead and noted that we believe that should have been 71570, and we'll double check on that. With that revision, is there any additional discussion?
So yes,
Yeah,
if it is, and it was voided, and it looks like it was reissued on the same date. I just, the Coley elevator, again, sorry.
it's
2/3
weird.
of the way down.
Yes. So here's my, and we're
then
also
there's
actually,
another one at
yeah.
1574. What's going on with the elevator company?
we have questions about that actually. So that's not a
I
bad
would
thing.
frankly
Yeah.
propose not accepting this until we get that squared away.
We were out a couple of times recently.
We're currently out of compliance with
Yeah.
the elevator. So-
Right. So we were really shocked because I was saying I keep, being presented with these Coley elevator checks. And why don't we have a certificate of compliance?
It's not actually legal for them to be fixing our elevator right now.
But they're the ones who were supposed to be submitting that, and they didn't.
No, not them.
No?
Diane was. and
Ah.
she never did.
Because my assumption was that as part of the fire remediation or repair work, the elevator was given a grant.
It was in August, so they did do an inspection in August, but the state marshal walked in here last week
Oh,
and said they were out of compliance,
Mhm.
which I didn't understand because I said, I know we went through an inspection because I was here that morning. And I said, well, we went through a fire. He said, your terms are from April to April. I said, well, we had a fire in March. So I said, we weren't getting an inspection. He said, it doesn't matter. Your days, your months are still April to April. And since she didn't submit that paperwork to the state, we are now out of compliance. So now I have called County Elevator for them to go through the inspection process again, because it involves the fire department.
So during the month of April, when we brought a commission to the fire, there still should have been something done with the elevator.
There should have been something said to the state fire marshal from what he said, so that they could have allowed us an extension and we could have stayed in compliance from April to April,
Right.
because we had fire.
But yet in August, when we opened up, the elevator was inspected and somebody gave the green light on.
But it was just never, it was never submitted to
to
anyone.
the state.
Yeah.
So he came out.
Did we find out why?
What a mess.
And then there was a furnace inspection.
There's a boiler inspection certificate in the elevator. And it shouldn't be there.
But I don't know if you can blame all those.
I don't know, but that's just weird. Okay, so here's, I don't know the proper situation here. I'm gonna be honest. Trustee Moser is our most experienced trustee.
We could approve.
What
the
happens
exception
if
of
we
the
don't?
Coley checks. We could approve the checks with the exception of the Coley elevator. Perhaps, and then we could defer that until the next week.
I don't think we'll ever get an explanation.
So that's the issue. I mean, I can look to see which checks were paid, because I did full March and April payment.
Right.
And I can certainly see tomorrow if something was voided or if something got jumbled up, because
Right.
1517 to 1570 is a large jump
Right.
in numbers.
So, yeah, and if it's not, that if it's, then we're missing a check. We're missing 1570. What it looks like, and I'm hypothesizing, but what it looks like happened is 1517/70 maybe was issued on the, and it was later voided. But then 1580, that's for the exact same amount as the
Right.
voided check. So maybe that was the reissued check. And then the 1574 was a separate matter,
Yeah.
which it looks like was probably paid after, for a different invoice. So question mark, I don't know.
Okay,
Okay.
that worked for you.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor, oh, sorry, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Yes.
Trustee Casal McAllen.
Yes.
Trustee Robbins.
Yes.
Trustee Moser.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Okay,
I know it's late, I apologize. I want to go back to the other issue that I raised earlier. I would like to ask motion. Because I just feel like we're trying to solve.
The question number one.
please
Yeah.
go ahead and make a motion.
Challenge the current economic interest statement. Reasonableness and
It's reasonableness, it's scope, because it seems to be overreaching,
Okay.
and it's lack of clarity. Because I want to state on the record that I honestly don't understand it, and I answered it to the best of my ability, but now I have to consider amending it because you pointed out maybe I didn't answer it correctly. So I think the issues are its scope, and it's overreaching, and it's unclear.
I agree.
Would you mind reading back the resolution? You guys,
Trustee Moser moved for a motion for the Township to challenge the current economic interest statement due to the scope,
The overreaching scope, reasonableness, lack of clarity, intrusiveness, and poor drafting. The only other thing you had in last one was you wrote especially towards question
Specify the paragraph.
Well,
To think of the rest of
But
it.
I would propose leaving it as you just stated without these specificity question.
yeah, I think
Because I agree. I am now freaked that I misread this and, I filled it out to the best of my abilities and now I'm scared.
so we redo it or we say pending our proposal?
Well, so we have a motion, we have a
We got a
second.
motion and.
We don't have a second. We didn't have a.
We had
second.
two seconds, I think. Is there any additional discussion? My question is, what do you want? What is the challenge? Is it just, it's just a official statement of the board that, to this effect?
Do we need to notify the county or the state?
It's the county that's in charge of the local government.
So then to notify them that we're challenging them. Do we need to get the advice of council on correct next steps? Since there's now been a motion if that is passed.
Well, the question is, what is the definition of challenge? You know, that's my question is it a statement of this board? Is it directing our attorney to challenge it in the court of law? Those are different things to me.
I just want clarity. Right.
Filing by the May 1st deadline, because we already.
And what if we already did?
From your research stuff, and it seems to be like this is just because of this, but it's a widespread problem that other people have to say. We're not alone.
Right, they're not
You
allowed.
know, I mean, we're all being very responsible and diligent trying to figure this out. And, but it sounds like the people you talked to in your investigation conveyed to you that this is a real thing, that other people have
We're
choices.
not doing.
Yeah. And then maybe if some momentum grew, that they might figure out a way to possibly legislatively amend it or perhaps modify it for smaller public for smaller municipalities or,
So we have the motion.
I just don't know how does it operationalize? Yeah.
Right.
So do we draft something and send it to the county? Do we draft something, show it to council and then send it to the county? I guess practically, what does this look like?
I could see us directing council to write a letter on our behalf to the county. I don't think it'll excuse any, non-compliance. Right, right.
don't do something by its deadline, you probably get a warning. It's probably not the world.
No, I'm sure it's not.
That's small time.
So you're gonna.
Yes, it is a $15 late filing fee.
That's right, and I never got the notice. So I charged the town.
I'm reading the email. It says $15 late filing fee, and if you fail to file by May 31st, it may result in a forfeiture of the office or position of employment.
That's why it's a big deal. That's why I wasn't doing them.
Well, why don't, and this does not constitute legal advice, but couldn't you file,
You already filed.
I filed.
And you filed your, you filed your.
Could you file
Yeah,
with
I haven't.
an asterisk saying, I hereby oppose? Theoretically, you have submitted by, on privacy grounds.
That's actually an interesting let's see what happens. If anything. Oppose, the level of detail that seems to be required, but who knows how much is required on privacy grounds, file it by the deadline and see what the response is. I don't know.
I would say, like,
If you have to say not it.
Yeah.
Specify.
like you're answering interrogatories.
Does it have a
You're
lock?
responding.
Lock or is it a box?
It's a box, it's a free.
It is a
text
box.
It's a free text box.
Then you're supposed to forward it.
Right, yeah, right. So, I mean, because the statement as it looked in the past, it was either, not applicable or applicable.
Right.
But
It's the
apply.
same, it's the same.
Okay, so it still applies. So that, yeah, that's technically, I guess, not A, but then A, but that's probably not right.
Right, it wouldn't say not applicable, but unless it is, because you're still stating it under penalty of perjury.
Yeah,
So I would put down, investment and retirement. Here,
That's a list.
that way I answer the question, what I have in the walls.
Right.
And then we have this on record.
That's probably how we would do it.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Right, so.
If we can.
That makes,
Yeah, I'm hoping I can, frankly.
that makes sense.
That does make sense.
And then as far as the follow-up here, did Kelly write a letter? Did we just have it in our records that we've done this and then it come back? Or we had a resolution telling the document.
we want to take it forward because otherwise you might have to do it again next year. I mean, you really want to.
That's the thing is if everybody just does nothing but this, then nothing changes.
Well, let's say they respond saying this is insufficient, right? And,
Exactly, that's what it should be.
right,
Then that's information and we have choices to make.
right, then you can respond challenging the form itself on privacy.
In a way, that's why we do not. Until they say to us, we haven't complied with what the statute says. That point,
Because I don't want a motion today to bind us to a litigation strategy. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, right. But it- yeah. Mhm.
So that it is a record that we challenge the validity of it based on.
And yeah, on Friday, can you raise a stink on the call and just, add our voice that like, this is a problem and, if it's poor draftsmanship, if it's, insufficient scope, if it's, we've got it, it's gonna be the numerosity. And all of the townships together saying, we need to do better.
I don't know if there is a call this week, but I'm out. I have an idea.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be excited.
All right, so what do we do about now?
So do you want a statement in our minutes at this time? And we can decide on further actions depending on the response.
I'd be willing to go on that.
Yeah.
I would put down,
Then maybe Nicole just have the minutes reflected there was a lengthy discussion about people's inability to really understand the new,
Well, it's not even just understand it. Even when you understand it, like
Discomfort with.
discomfort with.
and feeling a consensus that there just seemed to be so much overreaching and so much invasiveness.
Yeah,
And real consternation on how to handle it.
absolutely.
I think that
rather than most do it in terms of our own.
rather than emotion at this point.
So that it would be in our discussions in a minute. Okay, great.
That's acceptable. Push it.
Thank you for bringing that to attention.
So it's officially motion withdrawn.
Okay, yeah. agree with that. Yes.
Right, and it will be reflected further.
Right. We're now in line for motion to adjourn. Is there such a motion?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you for staying